All right, what's up, everybody? Good to be back. We got the big one today. Obviously, we got the tier list. Everybody's been fiending and asking for it, so we gotta officially do it. Um, this one was. I'm not gonna say there was an aspect of it that was difficult, like the initial placement of like right now. I think, in my opinion, was pretty easy. Just getting like a good basis for just like right now. God, like I've been sweating. I have been like literally running around. Um, but the initial placement of the heroes like right now actually pretty easy. I was like, okay, there's also a lot of evolutions that are going to happen over the course of the next couple of months. You have, people talking about Florian dipping out during ProQuest season, even KO, some things like that, which is, you know, that's obviously going to impact things a lot. And so one thing that I'm going to try to do, and chat, feel free to like hold me to it, because sometimes I'll start it and then I'll get like just lost in the sauce and then stop doing it. So what I'm going to try to do is when I get to a particular hero that I think will make a really big difference with the departure of a hero that's really high on the living legend list, I'm going to kind of touch on a little bit like what that means, how you can kind of prepare, and what can you do now to kind of get ready for that, because I think that is definitely of value for sure, right? Because we do have a lot of things that are going to transition very, very quickly as these decks leave, and there's some that are like super obvious, right? Like Florian and KO. Those two are like probably the two that have the highest potential of just dipping out during ProQuest season, mainly because KO's at, I think he's at a 1.5 now, or 1.5 times. No, he's not, because he's between. It's 0.5 for the first year. The 1 to 2 years, I believe, is which he would fall into that category. So I don't think he's quite at the 1.5 multiplier. But I still think he might make it. So spoiler alert. KO's pretty good. He's not the best, but we'll get there. We'll get there. And I'm also kind of trying to shed some light on like why I think certain heroes are being kind of like a little bit overhyped, in my opinion. Definitely good, but I think people are jumping the gun a little bit. We're going to try to like rationalize and stuff like that. So I'm really excited as always doing these. And thank everybody for joining me. I really, really do appreciate it. And I mean, we got a long one today. I just realized we have 38 fucking heroes in CC, which is, I feel like that number just, I feel like yesterday we talked about how I couldn't count the number of heroes, or I was counting the number of heroes, and February literally just had it all tallied up right there, and it was like 30. And I was like, holy shit, we have 30 heroes. Well, now we're literally almost at we're literally almost at 40. It's absolutely wild. I will admit, I was kind of dooming and glooming on the aspect of that many heroes. Don't worry, we're about to hop in. I just wanted to give some time for people to kind of like get in here. And I was kind of dooming and glooming about the aspect of like, oh, you got to play around like this many heroes and things like that. But I think the board state decks like Gravy, Prism, and things like that just kind of, I think that's what's saving us from the situation of, oh, you have to prep for 40 heroes, right? So, yeah, it is what it is. Can you assign me a hero for ProQuest? If you can tell me what you have the option to play, I can tell you what's best. I just have to do, tier list is going to be wild 5 years from now. We're going to have to do, the tier list strikes back. We're gonna have to make it a trilogy and all kind of stuff, bro. It's gonna be rough. Not only that, but oh my god, when we get into Living Legend, I mean, let's be real. Like when I do the Living Legend tier list, which probably 2 weeks from now, I'm not gonna do half the heroes, right? Because they're like literally just pointless. Because they don't even. You're like comparing CC to Blitz decks. Like it's rough. So play Teklo. Yeah, I've heard that one before. And you almost got me one time, but we're not gonna go that way. We have 38 heroes, but usually only 8 rotate. Yeah, and but Peter, to your point, and I kind of mentioned that a second ago. I think the reason that is the way it is are decks like Gravy, and I guess that's not even true, really, right? Because you could say same thing about Florian, right? Like if you're trying to compete on the mid-range axis, like what the fuck are you doing if you're not playing that deck? So I guess you're right. I guess it really doesn't matter as long as each lane is open. We'll start to see a problem when lanes start closing. When I say lane, I mean like mid-range, combo, control, and aggro, whatever the case may be. So let's go ahead. Let's do it. Okay. Now we have to talk about the change of scenery, everybody. Okay. So previously, a little bit of context. When I made tier list, I went to that website that everybody uses, and I would hope and pray that somebody had already collected all the images of the new heroes onto one tier list. And 100% of the time I was lucky because somebody did the work for me. But now we don't have to do that. It's all here in this neat little tool. Super convenient. And yes, before somebody says it in chat, I know that if you select a hero, it says currently discussing, right? But I have to have my currently discussing tier because that's like patent pending, right? But no, this tool is amazing for like what it is, and then you can just drag it. It's actually insane. Obviously, it only works with Fab, but like who cares? And you can even change the format. It's like absolutely sick. One piece of feedback, if the person who runs this sees this, I would like to choose how I sort these heroes because obviously it's alphabetical. But I would love to like from WTR to the newest set, right? Like sort the heroes by release date or something like that. I don't know if that's possible or how difficult that is to do. Because like I'm gonna have to go like up, down, up, down, up, down, which is not a huge deal. Don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining. I'm just throwing it out there. Let me get caught up in chat and then we're off to the races. We're just gonna hop right in. KO and Verdance are good decks. I have access to. I mean, they're both good picks. Like easy. You literally can't go wrong. I only have Gravy. What should I play for PQ? You should play Gravy if you only have Gravy. Oh man, board heroes are not what we desired, but they are what we needed. That is correct. 100%. All right, we're just gonna jump in. Like, why the hell not? Okay. Everybody knows the drill here. We're gonna start in WTR and we're gonna work our way down. That's just the way I've always done it, and we're not fucking changing it now. So that's just what we're gonna do. Okay. So let's go ahead and start with Bravo. He got like a couple cards, right? Now he got, it even like has that little glow to it. I like this. Okay. I see. I see. Just put the heroes in D. Oh yeah, it's insane. So I made a joke previously that somebody found like Kel McCree's Alpha Bravo deck at a Second and Charles on the bottom shelf. And yeah, not much has changed. He got a couple cards, right? Like he did get some improvements. He is a better deck. But his position in the meta, unfortunately, he's just not there. He doesn't have the the defensive prowess to really grind anybody out. He doesn't have, well, I mean, he does, don't get me wrong, but like there's just other decks that do it way better. Nothing has really changed with this hero. As cool as he is and as flavorful as he is, and just kind of one of the OGs, just doesn't have it. I do expect some things as some heroes kind of rotate out. I do expect a splash of Bravo to kind of pop up. Not really Worlds. I'm looking mainly at next year, probably when we get some of these, other decks kind of rotated out. Maybe, but I mean that's so hypothetical because we don't know what's coming, right? And that could just create another layer that suppresses him, basically. So obviously, Bravo's going to go in D tier. There's no really way to really cut it. Just is what it is. So next, we can definitely go into let's do Katsu. Okay, so we can go and hit Katsu pretty simply, right? He got an absolutely amazing card last time, right? The blue of the past card. I forget the name. That's how memorable it is. No, that was a little rough, but like it just did not make an impact, right? Or I mean, it made him okay, but like his representation in the meta didn't really shift. It didn't make a big difference. So it's getting worse before it's getting a lot better. You got decks that actively want to block now, and they're being punished less by doing so. So really, there's just no avenue for Katsu to attack. You're just electing to play an inconsistent aggro deck for literally no reason other than flavor, right? So as far as where he would go in the tier list is probably, I mean, I kind of want to put him at the bottom of C, but to be honest, toward the end, he could end up, he could easily end up at D. So I'm not going to make any promises, right? So like, that's just where we're going to put him for now. As always, I hold the right to kind of, shake it up and, is what it is. Yeah, it is pretty sad that the Edge of Autumn and the Ira Armory deck didn't really make that big of an impact. It did give him another way to be played, which is always cool, but not really any meta impact. So next we can go ahead and, I mean, these are all pretty easy. We'll save Dory for after. What's the other? Oh yeah, Reinar. We got good old Eugene. Okay. We got good old Eugene. So this is interesting, okay? If you think about it, hear me out, chat. Even if you take Eugene out of the equation, right? Reinhardt's in kind of a good spot. You got a lot of mid-range decks that are trying to basically, kind of block you out, play the value game, playing Reinhardt just kind of shits on that, right? He got some tools that allow him to be really aggressive. He got, he's still going to have to struggle into aggro, right? But KO is that type of aggro that really needs to block with particular cards at particular points in time. So as crazy as it sounds, intimidating KO can actually be like really good. I'll just give you an example. If they have like 2 non-blocks and then 2 block cards, and one of the block cards is a blue, and then the other one was just trying a Clash of Might or something, and you intimidate that card, it could be massive amounts of value, because what you ultimately is going to force the KO player to do is, if they're good at their deck and they understand the math behind scabs, more than likely you're going to force them into a scabs roll, which means if they roll hot, then congratulations, you get to lose faster, and you get to get a bigger break between matches, right? Which is a win. If he rolls a 1 or misses the roll, then you actually win the game, and you can actually do stuff. So I think he's in a decent spot. Now, am I itching to test him and actually bring him? No, that's not where he's at, but I think he's a solid B tier hero. in honesty, he's probably going to be toward the lower end of the B, but he's like super solid. Even if you're not Eugene, if you're Eugene, automatic A or S, if not S plus, right? Of course. But definitely like just a solid hero right now. I think this is finally one of those positions where maybe you can get a little bit of respect. And then we have good old, where's Dory at? There's Dory. Okay. Thank God they scoot up too and they don't leave like empty spots. So eventually I won't have to scroll as far. Really good site, by the way. Really good site. Okay. Doesn't Reinar suffer from the fact that there are better brutes to play right now? I don't think any brute is competing with what he's trying to do. So it just depends on whether you want to attack the meta that way. Like, you would never try to race with Reinar. Like, KO is just going to do that better. You don't want to grind with Reinar because other KO does that better. But Reinar just has that explosive kill you out of nowhere. And if that's what you're trying to lean on, fucking go for it. So let's go ahead and talk about Dory. Dory's in a very interesting spot. The new card that she got, the new blue, is an amazing card, right? There's no way to really sugarcoat that. It's like glint with some like spice on it, right? Well, I guess it doesn't draw a card, but it's a very flexible, glinty-ish card, right? Very, very solid. The problem is we got a lot of D-Reacts coming to the format, and if you think some Fable's going to save you, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's just not right. And you could say, okay, historically, dual-wielding warrior has been really good against KO, and that's because previously KO had a lot harder time kind of extracting value from his whole hand. With the new cards, that is not really the case. He has a lot of extra ways that he can actually use every single card in his hand without rolling scabs. And because that's the case, I think dual-wielding warrior is not going to render the same results as it previously did in the Pro Tour LA era or heavy hitters era. That's just, I think people are going to try it, but I think it's ultimately going to fall a little short in the dual-wielding warrior aspect. So Dawnblade's basically a no-go, in my opinion. Sure, you're going to beat up Gravy, but we've kind of seen how like that deck should beat up on Syndra, but it never really does. Florian's going to literally just roll you up and smoke you. There's just no... I don't see an avenue that you're actually competing on by playing Dorinthia, in my opinion. Nathan, that Fable is so much fun in Dagger's Mario, by the way. I bet it is. Yeah, I don't even know what you would want to run into. But I mean, all of that to say, I think she's like solid C. She'll probably end up toward the top end of C. Like, it's not a bad deck. I just don't know what lane you're actually trying to attack with that deck. Like, I don't know what you're actively trying to do. If you want to go dual wielding, Fang and Cassai do it better, right? In the current meta. I'm not going to say that's always the case. I'm just saying that it's currently, that's how it is. So I really don't like the idea of taking Dory to a tournament right now. Good deck, just not its moment in time. Much like the past 4 years. No shade. Let's go ahead and go to Arcane Rising. Oh, they're all gone. No, I'm just kidding. There is one left, Kano. We do have one Arcane Rising hero left. Dash, Azalea, and Viscerai are out of here officially. I still think it's crazy that Dash left. Like, that was the most anticlimactic thing ever, but she earned it. Just that hero that would snipe a calling out of nowhere and just randomly. It was really cool. Kano. I've been burned so many times by placing this hero high, low, and everything in between. And ultimately, the placement has nothing to do with the deck. It's, do people want to actively respect it? If that answer's no, it shows up, right? And there's always a splash at the beginning of every meta. Every week 1 through 4, Kano's going to show up here, there, make a top 8. Everybody talks about it, and then nobody sees it again for 4 months. Happens every fucking time, right? We saw 2 top 8 or something in Memphis, right? And then just gone. Just non-existent, right? Same shit's going to happen, okay? So I'm going to put it where ultimately I think it will end up, which is probably closer to like the bottom of B, maybe upper A. Just didn't get anything from the set, and yeah, just not it. I don't. Maybe we go top of C, but if I put it in C, it's going to win Worlds. So I don't know. B is going to be kind of contested, so I'm going to put it in C. We're gonna disrespect it, which means everybody else will, which means it'll win an event very soon, right? Of course, that's how it always works. C tiers are the winners, as always. Going into the next set, what came after Arcane Rising? Y'all, it going back that far? Time out real quick. Most of the US player base, at least all the old school players, like jumped in around like I want to say Tails Monarch era. That just feels like forever ago. We've had so many sets. It's just wild thinking about it. I don't know. It's absolutely crazy. Just kind of kind of, you know. Let's go ahead and hit the Monarch, right? We got the good half of Monarch is LL'd. Then you have the Bolton and Levia. Aria, I hope you're not watching right now, but if you are, earmuffs real quick. This hero sucks. No, it's not terrible. Okay, like the new card's good, right? And so were the 7 cards that came before it. 3 of which were like dedicated legendaries that only Bolton can use, and he still isn't. Oh, and got an armory deck. Bolton is officially the most supported worst hero in the game, in my opinion. Has literally been shown the most love, but has nothing to show for it. But that's the crazy part is like they're not holding back on these cards, in my opinion. Like the new card, it's good. It's a good fucking card, but I don't know. The hero just doesn't have it, and I'm sticking with it. Just not gonna do it. We're gonna keep it in C tier. Is what it is. You know, gotta do what you gotta do, I guess. But it's, oh man, it's too good. It's too good. I don't appreciate how you talk about Mr. Rube, but in your statement, Andy, you didn't tell me I was wrong. You just said you didn't like it, which means maybe I'm not. Just saying, right? Good to see you, Andy. Good to see you. Yeah, he just got a crazy amount of support and just having a hard time taking off. Really is. Now we got Levia. Okay, now I historically have way overplaced Levia because I know what she's capable of. The part that I kind of mess up in the tier list is I don't have as good of a grasp on what it takes to extract that is the problem. So I think that she's a very solid hero. I think she does a very powerful thing. But in the new cards, I'm sure do nothing but help. I'm almost positive that there's some card that she will leverage to be a little bit better. The problem is all the other brutes did. And other brutes don't just accidentally die. That's kind of, that it is what it is, right? So ultimately, I'm going to place Levia at the bottom of B, but could end up scooting down to C depending on where things kind of land. But Levia is next to Reiner. Hey, you're absolutely right. That's exactly where I put it. Levia is the coolest. One of my favorite games of Fab ever was in Atlanta. I played somebody and they were having a blast. They were embracing the variants. It was one of the best games I've ever played of Flesh and Blood. I had an absolute blast. That it wasn't the Battle Hardened, it was the event afterwards. The ProQuest Plus, I think is what they call it. It was really good. Petition to move Bolton to lower C. He loses to Kano. All right, let's go easy. I mean, you're actually right. You're actually right. I'm gonna put him above Katsu. We'll do that. We'll do that. But you are right. Nah, he's got to be a better pick than that. Like, he's not bad, right? Look, I would put him here, but Ellie did step in and help us during the show match. So I'm gonna give Bolton a bump for that. Okay. We'll do that. We'll do that. Okay. I think he's there, but that one's for you, Ellie. All right. Let's go ahead and go to the next set, which I believe was Dynasty. Because, well, the next set was actually Tales of Aria, and then those are all gone. And then we have Arachne Huntsman, I believe, which came in Dynasty, of course, after Everfest and all of that. So let me just do a quick skim, make sure I'm not going crazy. Yeah, I'm 90% sure that sounds right to me. Okay. So this here is still trash, right? A 2-card 4 defense reaction that does something cheeky is not changing anything. I don't know who needs to hear that, but that is just the case. The design of the new card is amazing. It's absolutely insane, right? Like from a design perspective, right? Absolutely love it. However, oh, it was Tales Uprising, then Outside. Well, we're doing these backwards then, because this one's not going to take long. Arachne, unfortunately, the 1 of 3 goes straight into D tier. Great design on the new card, but it's not going to get you there. Just isn't. It is what it is. King of memes. I like that. I like that. That's a good way to put it. Okay, let's go ahead and do what we should have done. The last hero remaining in Uprising from Icelander, Dromai, and Phi. Phi is still in that spot that has not changed, where he is just a not as dynamic, not as good syndrome, right? So on the surface, I think Phi actually fits pretty well into the meta right now. Like, he's not terrible. There's just a better option, right? I think it's literally as simple as that. And it is what it is. So, in a vacuum, like, I'd probably put him as like a solid low B tier hero, but like in the meta, how it competes, like, I just can't. The new D react is so good; it helps smooth out turns. Amazing, yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Oh, somebody mentioned the star difficulty. Shout out to Fab for the revamp of the website. Absolutely phenomenal. There's a lot of I looked over it the other day or today, and I noticed there was a lot of stuff that I think is really well done. Just small stuff like when the heroes are off to your left side, and at the top it says pick your hero. It didn't say pick a hero or select a hero. It said pick your hero. And just like the ability to like click on them, learn a little bit, and understand the difficulty. I think from a new player coming in, one that's like badass. Like, I think I've seen a lot of people compare it to like fighting game vibes. It's really cool. But more importantly, in my opinion, is just the information basis. Like, where the fuck do I start, right? Do you want to start in the deep end with gravy? Like, is that something you want to do? Because a lot of people can have the ability to kind of leverage that information. I'll give you an example. Let's say like I don't know what the Magic equivalent of Kano would be. I didn't play Magic. Somebody in chat, whatever the fuck that is, right? If they wanted to try this game and they started with Phi, that would be a disaster, right? Because there's no way that that's the deck that they would want to, that's not the deck that they would want to play, right? Like, there's no shot that that's what it would be. So Storm, okay. Yeah. So if you were a Storm player, there's no way you're gonna like Fi. I'm assuming red deck wins would be closer to Fi, right? Where it's just turn and burn, right? And so having that information on the website gives people the ability to start with a hero that may not be exactly what they end up playing or exactly what they like, but it'll be closer, right? Like it'll at least be in the realm of like what they would enjoy. So really, really well done on the website. Absolutely phenomenal job. I'm going to spend some more time kind of going through it, but really well done. Really well done. Okay, what do we got now? We went from Uprising to, give me a second, I can figure it out. Oh goodness, is it? No shot. It's Outsiders, right? Or is it? Oh no. Did I forget what came after Outsiders. That's what it was, either Outsiders or okay. We'll go with Zuri. I'm losing it today. Chat. Red mage equals burn, red and green equals storm. So red and green is like the big brain thing. Okay. I understand. Okay, Azuri. I don't know if Collins is here, but if he is, earmuffs. Not. Azuri is a fine deck. It does something that is powerful. The problem is that it's just outshined by 2 other assassins. It's literally, that is literally just the case. So, you should definitely be playing Slippy or Mario over Azuri if that is the. I don't think there's a real angle that you fulfill by playing this version of Assassin. Light years ahead of the Huntsman, right? Like way better than that. But at the end of the day, like what can you kind of do, right? So I think it's a very solid deck, but I just don't know if there's an active reason to be playing the hero, unfortunately. So I'm gonna put Azuri ahead of Fi, just because. Is it? Maybe something like that. I like that. So we'll go there with Azuri. Final answer. The middle of C tier. Man, we are starting off to a C start. I tell you what. Now we go straight into good old Riptide. Okay. Last hero for outside. Well, you had Katsu and Azalea that were reprints, but we got Riptide, right? And Riptide's interesting. I've always been a fan of the deck, but unfortunately, the reality is right now you need. It is more valuable to go wide than it is go tall. And that's just the truth of the matter, right? Especially if you have no evasion attached to your attack. If you just present everything and then let your opponent make the best mathematical decision because there's no information hidden, then there's less edge to be gained on skill. And the new card, one of my absolute favorite cards from a design perspective, I don't think is fundamentally going to change what that deck ultimately does, because the deck typically struggles by utilizing all of their cards and converting them into tempo or damage. And with that being said, a lot of people just underestimate the ability to just not swing the bait token and just passing turn and IPing yourself. Like there's so many people or they'll just swing it and then not activate the reaction, right? I mean, there's so many things that you can do. And then Riptide is just like, what the fuck am I going to do with all these cards? I don't know what to do with a 6-card hand or a 5-card hand. So, yeah, just don't. I wish I could put him higher, but I mean, he's got to be like, man, Is this another C tier hero? Is it really? We're about to start scooting them down to D, chat. We're about to start. We're getting too heavy, and well, we know who's going. We know who's going in D tier. Oh, we know Huntsman's way better than Nathan is presenting. Really? You think so? You think that blue D react just breaks the game because you hit their Blood Rush Bellow on the top? You think so? Huntsman is way better. Way better. Okay, I'm gonna put Riptide. Just not the biggest problem is like you got people willing to block you. So the most viable, unfortunately, like you have to go like Giga Aggro with Dreadbore, or you have to go Cringe Fatigue, and then both of those variants lose to Cravey, both lose to Wizard. It just ain't it, chat. It just ain't it. So we're gonna put Riptide probably here. To be honest, probably like the lowest I put him in a long time. 30 some heroes. We have D's coming up in Bright Lights and Heavy Hitters. Hey James, let's not jump the gun. They got new cards. You might be right. You might be right. Where's the F tier? Do we need one? There is Betsy. Oh, I laughed so hard when the website showed that Betsy was a 2 difficulty hero and Bravo was a 1. That Kel pointed that out and it had me crying. It was actually pretty funny. Okay. Now we have Vinny, right? Vinny and Prism. We'll go ahead and do Vinny first because Vinny's a Runeblade. So I'm a little biased, Runeblade and everything, but this is not it. Like, even with my bias, I want this hero to be good. And the hero does have some game into KO, I will admit. And maybe even to Syndra at some point. But man, this is not the meta. There's so many decks that have the ability to just hit the brakes out of nowhere, make you have functional hands turn after turn, and that is not what you want to be doing. As Vince said, you do not want to be doing it. Very, very dangerous. Any Runeblade Nathan gonna put in. Yeah, I do think she's like B tier level because, like I said, she does have game. She's gonna end up toward the bottom. I'm be honest, but it's like she has game into Syndra and KO. Florian is just gonna absolutely dumpster you unless you go stack. I know the play, but it's just not that consistent in my opinion. Benny's a D tier here with an S tier attitude. I could not have said it better myself. Like that is good, right? So I'm gonna give her a little bit of respect because there is some matches that she wins. I just don't think it's enough to like actually bring her. But if like that's what you've been playing for the past 2 years since she dropped, or however long it's been, then like maybe there's an angle, right? Like maybe, but I don't know. I don't see it. All right, let's talk about good old Prism. Everybody's not favorite. So ALS is obviously still a card, right? That hasn't gone anywhere. So that like automatically gets you to C tier, okay? No matter what. Then you have flexible aggro plans with Heralds. Okay, that gets you to B tier. And then, you immediately stop there because KO is just going to literally take a shit on you. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. The Florian matchup, in my opinion, the Prism players used to be really confident in the Florian matchup, and I think that's shifted a little bit. I'm not going to go to the point to where I'm saying Florian's favorite. I'm just saying that if Florian sits across from a Prism, I don't think it's the end of the world. So Kevin said, my time to be sad. So it's not the moment. Strong deck, strong card pool, does the powerful thing. really, really good deck. Like, I don't know how to put it, but the problem is that we know that, in my opinion, the most represented aggro deck is probably going to be KO. And that matchup will literally just give you PTSD as a Prism player, because there's aggression, there's poppers around every corner. There's like, it's so much stuff, right? And it's not like Dromai where you can like wear them out of poppers, right? Like, no, they're just gonna pop and then hit you in the face, right? So it's not where I would want to be. So with that being said, I'm gonna put some respect on her. I think she's strong, but I'm gonna put her at the top of B. She'll probably end like right at the top of B, all the way at the top. I would love to get your endorsement on that placement, Kevin, whether that's right or wrong. Could break in the bottom of A, but I'm going to be honest, I probably doubt it. But I think top of B is a fair placement for Prism in this meta. Now, when KO leaves, everything I said, just throw it in the trash, right? Like, none of it matters. But right now, she just needs to sit on the sideline for a little bit, wait through PQ season. If you are a Prism player, just give it some time. KO is going to be gone. He might be gone after Worlds, depending on how well he does. But that's just where we're at. So I think she's at the top of B. That's my placement. Now we go into everybody's favorite set, Bright Lights. Let's just start with Tekla Lawson. Okay. So he got an upgrade. He actually got arguably one of the best cards in the set on like a per card value, right? Like, just starting with that much extra life just from the get-go is like really good, right? And you even gain like a little bit of flexibility and stuff. So like, it's an upgrade. I'm not gonna like downplay that in any way. But the problem is, it doesn't fucking matter, because it just does not matter. Gravy's going to chew you alive. Sure, you can probably block out and fatigue KO. Florian's going to outgrind you, especially because he got Germinate back. It's going to be an absolute joke. You could make an argument if he didn't have Germinate that maybe you could get there, you could outgrind, but no shot it's happening with Everbloom Germinate. Like, good fucking luck, okay, is all I'm going to say. So that's kind of where I'm at. Teklo is just simply not the play. So we're going to put Teklo obviously in D tier. Just is what it is. I say Reinar's B tier. Yeah, that's where I put him. Yeah, I think Reinar's solid. Teklo's chilling with Katsu. I don't think he's that good. And plus, okay, I'll be honest. I put him in D mainly because we got too many in C already. But we'll see when we get there. We'll scan over it kind of halfway through and kind of make some adjustments if we got to. We'll figure it out. Okay, let's talk about the talk of the town. Did something change with Max the Hype Nitro? Arguably got the best card in the set, period. Like, in a vacuum, like the Max card is like phenomenal card. It's a resource card. It's a power card. It blocks 3. Like, the card, like, literally just does everything. The new card doesn't even have go again. Yeah, because it gives you a shit ton of action points. But new card does all of that. And it's literally for no reason. We saw Merrick just trying to make this work. And it just doesn't. Or at least we ain't got there yet. New card gives him a chance, Taylor. Stop baiting people. We're actually baiting people now. Yeah, it gives max players the chance to cope. That's exactly what it does. I look, he could make it into C tier. Okay. And like the Mechanoid thing, I do think it's funny that they said that they did not want him to be a Mechanoid deck, but then they printed the card that kind of pushed him back into that Mechanoid play. What vacuum of space we are in. Look, it's a good card. It's a really good card. It's just a good card going in a shit deck is the problem. There's just better things to be doing in Flesh and Blood right now. That's just the reality of it. I don't know how else to say it. So I'm gonna put him kind of toward the top of D. A little bit of an upgrade, but he was literally the worst deck in the game, in my opinion. But now he is like at least cringe playable, is what I'll say. That's what what do they want a Mechanoid deck to be? Then I don't think they want one, to be honest. I really don't think they want one. Okay, now we got to go to the real Bright Lights hero, which is Dash IO. Now, she had a really big splash toward the kind of later part of last season with her taking down a calling and having several other top eights. And I mentioned that if I was going to go to it, what was it? The most recent Pro Tour, that's what that would be my pick at that last event. And she did pretty good. And then won the calling, I think, a couple weeks after. So like Dash IO was very well positioned in the meta previously. Here's the problem, okay? She's got Game into Gravy. We get that, right? That's all cool. That's fine. She even has like a coin flippy situation with Syndra. That's like a fair place to be. The problem is like Fleshbag is a bitch, okay? Out of all the decks that really care about that card, it is fucking Dio, okay? You need to compete with the brutes and their armor set and all of that other shit. You need a max V to really just like get that amount of value to actually compete on the basis of value. And that's really hard to do when you have to get the hand twice before you actually execute it. Not saying it's impossible to max feed through a Fleshbag. I'm just saying that, like, what are the chances of that being feasible? It is not that high, is all I'm saying. So I don't know. And then you have Florian, right? Like, let's just put KO to the side. Now you have Florian, right? Which is like the other expected kind of represented deck. I'm not going to say it's a horrible match. It was not great, but like you have to solve that fatigue situation. Now there are some shifts in the deck that are kind of helping that. Like I've seen some like Fiddler Green and stuff like that in Florian decks, and cards like that kind of help your boom grenades hit, stuff like that, which is always great. The problem is that, they got Germinate back, which is, another 3-blocker. So, you move to 2-block to a 3-block. So like he's definitely made up for it in other ways. And I don't think she's as good as she was. I don't know how else to kind of put it. We're going to kind of see as the meta progresses, but I am a little bit doubtful. I'm not as high on her. So I'm going to put her, I want to put her in A, but I'm having doubts. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, what do we have left? We have a lot of A left? We are going to put her in the bottom of A, but that could change. That very well could change down to B. Definitely not to A or S, I'll tell you that much. So I'm going to put her toward the bottom of A. Could end up being B, though, to be honest, depending on kind of how many decks kind of go in that slot. Okay. Let's go ahead and let's see. 1, 2, 3. It might just have to go in B. I don't know. We'll figure that out. Okay, let's move on to the next set, which is heavy hitters. Okay, let's just go ahead and make this really easy. Where's Olympia? Cool. Oh, you're a dual wielding warrior. You at least do something. Okay, so half of heavy hitters is done. I'm literally just not even going to take the time to talk about those. That's like literally at best, Dio is top C based on expected meta. Yeah, it's not a good spot. Well, top of C? No, she's better than that. Like she's still a powerful deck. Might be right. Okay, I'll put her there. I thought she was going to end up in B anyway, and I already told Kevin that Prism had the number 1 spot in B. So that is where she has to land currently. Currently. 1/3, we had 6. You are so right. That is math. That we still have to do Victor, Cassai, and Kayo. And of course, Rhinar was a reprint. Any retaliation? Oh, any relation? No, everybody assumes it, but no. Okay. So let's go ahead and hit up. Let's talk about Victor. So Victor's an interesting one. There was a spot in the meta last season where he kind of like tried to scoot in there and pick on the Syndras. That did not work. It literally did not work. Okay. And a lot of the Guardian cards that are in the new set are kind of focused on auras and stuff like that. Guess what? Auras don't have attack power, which do not clash well, which is the whole reason you play Victor. So other than like the Master Card, the 4 block, Iron Grip or whatever that makes the opponent discard a card. It's like the only card that you're like actively, like actually trying to it's like the only upgrade that he really got. And the meta got progressively worse. Florian's not where you want to be. KO historically has been a terrible matchup because you don't win the clashes because KO on average is just going to, he got Red Boulder Drop. My bad. That game changer, right? Good card. I'm not going to lie. Yes, he's a liar. Okay. Yeah, Taylor got me. And I'll stand behind that. You lose game because more often than winning game. I mean, it's not a bad card, but I do understand your point. I was kind of on the it's not as good side when the card was first announced. Like everybody in the team chat was like, "This card's busted," and I've never actually seen one resolved. So that's more talking shit about Guardian than it is the card. But I do think it's funny that I've never actually seen one resolved on stream. So let that be what it is. You know what I'm saying? So we'll probably put Victor. I think he's an actual okay deck, but like with KO being like the one deck that you would fit against as far as the aggro deck, you're not even winning clashes against, which means you're not getting hero abilities, which means you are a bad deck. No. KO got worse at clashing. Why did he get worse at clashing? KO got worse at clashing. My math, he got better because he's running some more, depending on whether you subscribe to the idea of Buck Wild and things like that. Those are 7 attacks that now clash for 8. So I don't know what deck list you're building. I don't know if you're like adding a bunch of like non-6s or anything like that, but like most lists that I've seen, he clashes actually better. With a new swing, yeah, you got a new swing big. Like, there's a lot of stuff. He's killing it on the clashes, is all I'm saying. So that's where I'm going to put Victor. And then we have, of course, Cassai, which is actually, before we talk about Cassai, okay, let's go. Just go right back. Let's go ahead and hit KO. Let's go ahead and let's do a little bit of a deep dive. We're going to spend some time on this one. I'm going to break it down, okay? Because this was the first hero we saw and don't get me wrong, those brute commons and rares, absolute bangers, right? And then you had Show of Strength, and then you have Stampeding Rampage. Like, the cards are phenomenal. Okay, absolutely phenomenal. Another swing big, basically another swing big in Stampeding Rampage, but even better in some situations, a lot of situations. And then you got better blues, right? You got a couple clash cards you can run. There's still sixes. You got just a ton of options. You can even stick with sea legs if you want, if that's the vibe you want to go for. I mean, there's so many different things that you have to be, you have the ability to solve within your deck list. The interesting part is that the KO deck list are kind of, I think we're going to see kind of multiple variants. I know, so when I think of KO, I think of two primary builds. You have like more like the Michael Hamilton version that he brought to, I think it was PTLA is where he took KO to. And I noticed that his list was like really mid-range, a little bit more clash. He didn't go all the way down to like yellow Wild Ride. I think it was just pulping, just red Wild Ride, and like your Bare Fangs, right? So he didn't go like all the way in on the go wide, no blocks, right? And then you have like the Andrew Rothamel version from US Nats, not this most recent one, the one before that. And that one just went like all in on that shit. He was like, I'm going to be the aggressor, and it is what it is, right? Like, deal with it. And so we're going to see two different angles on this deck. I think there's actually a version out there where you can be like super mid-range and you can really lean into that play style. You can kind of win your clashes. You can get a bigger token, kind of lean back, play more efficient hands. Like, there's a lot of, the most dopamine I've gotten this year in Fab was getting a Vigor token and playing Savage Sash. Or not Savage Sash, Savage Feast, and discarding a Sea Legs. That moment, I was like, holy shit, 1 card 6, discard draw, get go again another turn. I was like, that is absolutely busted. Vigor tokens in Brute. There's a reason they didn't get them in heavy hitters, is all I'm saying, okay? And so now we're going to see that combination kind of come to fruition, and it's looking a little dangerous. Deck's a little good. Now, so obviously, based on what I've said, we basically have two choices. Is the deck S tier? Is the deck A tier? What's the case? And this is where we have to be a little honest with ourselves. A lot of people are going to say it's automatic S tier, like it's already popped up in chat. I am going to offer the suggestion to pump the brakes. This deck, no matter where I put it on this tier list, okay, I want to stress this point. It is going to probably be the most represented deck at ProQuest season, in my opinion. Florian is the only deck in the game that can even compete with that spot, and I think they'll most likely tie, probably. But if I had to put my money on which one's actually going to take the edge, it's probably going to be KO, okay? The problem with that is KO is a lot more exploitable than a deck like Florian. So if players know that, KO's going to have a lot of representation. He's going to do really well because he's a strong deck, but I think the inconsistency is going to get the better of him. So what I'm going to do is, in my opinion, I'm going to give the top spot in A to KO. I cannot put him in S tier. I will explain why when we get to the other heroes. But in my opinion, KO is just not that deck. It's good. Do not get me wrong. Really, really fucking good deck. But I just do not believe down to my core that it's the S tier deck. Now, after Florian leaves, maybe there's more of an opening, but who countered KO during heavy hitters? It was dual building warrior. I don't think that'll be the case anymore. I think something else will step in and kind of do that a little bit better. There's not a lot of planning for brute, in my opinion. It's just big number. No, it is. It's block and then make them do very risky plays. That is the angle to attack brute. And guess what deck does that the best? Florian. Florian does that astronomically well. Gravy kind of does the same thing as well. So there's a lot of decks that kind of, demand the KO deck to be super consistent. And sometimes it will be, and they'll just run them over and they'll win the game. Like that will happen. But right now there's some decks that gotta worry about it a little bit. Wait, what beats KO? We're gonna get into that. Nothing on the board right now. I will put it that way. Nothing on the board right now beats KO. So let's go ahead. And so we cleared up heavy hitters. So let me look through. And I think we had next was Ira. No, we have Cassai. We did not finish heavy hitters. I lied. Okay. Cassai. So I think this was the deck that got the most. It is absolutely wild that we had to get to the end of heavy hitters to get an A tier hero. That is diabolical. Okay. Absolutely wild that we had to wait that long to get an A tier hero. That's actually just wild. Okay. So Cassai is in a very interesting spot. Okay. And I'm going to be honest. This is like the one that I think it's going to go one of two ways. Okay. And there's like no room in between. Either one, this deck will be nowhere to be seen, much like the last meta, or it will be, I got to go for the punt, or it'll be a big heavy hitter, right? And I think that there's not really room for this hero in between. Either it attacks the meta in a unique way, or it needs to get the fuck out. Is literally what should happen. Now, historically, dual building warrior has kind of just kept KO in check because you get to lean on the value of dynamos and then wait for an opening or a brick or miss scab roll or whatever the case may be due to the inconsistency of KO. And then you just launch a really efficient, whatever turn, right? And you can still do those things. The problem is that the KO deck's gotten a little bit more consistent. So you're going to get less windows of opportunity to actually execute that game plan. And I don't think the matchups, what my end prediction is, I think the matchup's actually going to land pretty close to 50-50. I don't think any particular deck's going to be like super favored over the other. Whereas it was previously like pretty handedly warrior favored. So that's kind of where I'm landing on that matchup dynamic. Now, with that being said, we have talked about the new card that obviously makes the cell swords, right? The problem with that card is you do have to hit. And this is an interesting dynamic that I want people to actually, think about, give it some thought, because it is going to actually impact how useful that card is. Think about the decks in which you are going to easily connect with the card, right? AKA make your cell sword. Then ask yourself, those decks, how easy is it for them to clear the cell sword? and then ask yourself the question in reverse. And what you'll come to the conclusion of is that the decks that are hard to hit are the ones you need the Cell Swords for, which is bad. Not saying it's a bad card. It's an amazing card. I'm just saying that it's a really good effect that requires something that rarely happens into the deck in which you need that, that effect. With that being said, you always have riches, right? So if you need to lean on Raisin Army and things like that. So like, obviously Kassai decks are going to have the ability to do both. You're not going to like, let me take my Raisin Armies out and put in that card. You're going to get blown out by anybody with 12D reacts. Like you're just going to get shit on. With that being said, it's going to be a huge skill check on the Kassai player to really line those things out, understand the game states and how you have do you just do whatever you can to keep your life total as high as possible, pitch riches and get gold. And then, then you have the ability to raise an army and then you just go ham. Like, is that your angle? And you're going to have to identify that. And that's what I meant in the beginning when I said either it's going to take over the meta or it's going to get the fuck out. Does that strategy materialize or does it not? So ultimately what happens is if this deck has game into Florian, it will be a massive meta share. Okay. If it does not, it will be people will play it because it is a popular deck. If it does not have a solid game plan into Florian that is actually successful, then it's going to get the fuck out, because if I'm going to play the mid-range game plan, I'm just going to play Florian. It's that simple. So that is kind of where I'm at. Kassai has game into Florian with Blood Follows Blade. I don't know about that, Josh, because like you have to hit. And I don't like Florian's the deck that's really hard to hit. So I was talking more of a raise an army angle with riches. I think that would be a more like that's the, from the way I look at it, that's the more like realistic way of doing what you were what you're attempting to do with Blood Follows Blade. In my opinion, I could be wrong. So that's where I land. Ultimately, I think Kassai, I have to put at the mid or bottom of A tier, depending on whether she shows up. But I'm telling you, if this deck shows up, it's going to take off. Not so much week 1 or 2, but if something's proven that it works, then it could easily be the most represented deck. Like it's going to take off that quick. But I'm telling you, if nothing is proven from like big events or like just winning a shit ton of pro quests, it'll be that deck that wins like 4 or 5, and it's like the 6th most winning deck. It'll be a solid deck, but it's not going to run the meta. So that's where I land on Kassai. Okay. So we now officially are done with heavy hitters. Okay, and then the deck to follow heavy, well, not the deck, it would be the armory deck, Ira, if I'm not mistaken. Or was it Yarl? I think it was Ira. Either way, I'm just going to do those and get them out of the way because I don't know when they actually landed in regards to the set. So let's go ahead and just hit Ira and then Yarl easy. Let me get a good old sip of water. Now MST, yeah. If only they existed. If only they existed. Okay. So Ira, I'm a huge fan of the most recent list that Shoma, they won a calling with, where it had the ability to, it basically had the ability to make really aggressive plays when you had openings, but also had the ability to kind of leverage defensive value, or not really leverage defensive value, but extend the game maybe just long enough to where you get a little bit more. I guess that's not even the right way to say it. It puts on so much pressure that you're incentivized to block, which then extends the game because your opponent's blocking, not you. So it's basically just swapping the equation. Instead of you blocking, you're putting on so much pressure, which forces them to block, which slows the game down, and you get more value from your hero. So I think that is still the correct angle for this deck. I think that you cannot afford to be super defensive. I think you have to be applying pressure, obviously, with Gravy still floating around, stuff like that. Yeah, I think that the deck is solid, but I do think that it takes a little bit of a hit because that strategy is going to work against decks like Gravy, or even have a little bit of an angle against something like Syndra or something like that. But when you get into KO and like how just, they can flip the script to you and say, okay, I'm just going to block a little bit and wait for my Blood Rush Bell, and then I'm going to go in, right? And it can be a little troublesome, right? And so I think it's a really good deck. It does something strong. I just don't think that it's the moment. It's kind of like saying it's in that Prism situation. Strong deck, does something really good. You just got to wait for somebody to move out. And I think Florian is one of those, right? Because you don't have that consistent turn aggression that Syndra does, that kind of allows you to compete with that deck. Ira would, to my knowledge, basically just be a death sentence into Florian because you're not that aggressive to where you can actually pressure enough to not get just outgrinded. So, in my opinion, Ira's probably going to land here-ish. Could scoot into A, possibly, but I think there's going to be some other decks that kind of occupy that space. Flick Flack is a house in the KO. That is true. I am the number one Ira versus Earth matchup doomer. It's not good. It's not good. Okay. So we went over Ira, and then we went over Yarl. So Yarl, I know Jason had the really good performance on the fatigue list. But I don't see that being a long-term solution to not any meta that we currently have in our kind of horizon, if you will. So I don't think it's a very good spot for Yarl, especially because we have a lot of decks like KO that are very aggressive, have good resource curves where giving them a couple frostbites may or may not do anything, right? And then you, of course, have Gravy, which is an issue, and then you have a couple of other things. Then not only that, but cat's out of the bag, right? People know that fatigue is a real possibility, so people are planning for it. People know what to expect. People have actually practiced into it instead of it being a just absolute surprise. So with that being said, I think Yarl earns a good spot kind of right between Reinar and Vinny is kind of, where I would put him. Solid deck, does something solid. Just, I don't know. I think Ice is kind of in the waiting room, and I would kind of put my finger as to why. I don't think Ice is the problem. I think just Yarl does not leverage Ice very well in a disruptive manner. Like, he has those cards, but he kind of lacks the ability to play said cards and put on a lot of aggression, that was the dangerous combination of Lexi and Icelander. Is Icelander could disrupt and be aggressive and defend. Just kind of did all of those things, right? So moving on, we have to get into. It would be Yes. Rosetta. Final answer. Okay, obviously we already lost Aurora. That happened so quickly. And we can go ahead. I guess we got to talk about the elephant in the room. All right, let's break down Florian. What the hell is happening, with this deck, right? This is kind of the discussions kind of evolved after the set was spoiled. Everybody's like, "Oh, KO's the sauce," and then everybody was like, "Oh shit, Florian's back," because they realized that it's very hard to consistently put on pressure, and if there's ever that moment in the meta, he's the deck that's going to leverage that. Oh, and he got Germinate back, so all of those things really good. More importantly, because he got Germinate back and the player base is, really good at adapting, the Florian players have solved the Verdance matchup. And I think they have completely flipped it. So I think that it's really Florian favored, in my opinion. Now, with that being said, the one thing that I'm not comfortable saying is we have not given Verdance players the time to counter adapt. Okay. So we've had, and just in case anybody's wondering, it's removing Reaping Blade and adding life gain. Okay. You have Germinate, you have Fiddler's Green, you have some people are even playing like Sigils and whatever the case may be, right? But you got life gain that gives you a buffer, and then they don't have Plume. And then you actually apply enough pressure with your big attacks to where they basically are forced to pitch stack a combo. And when they actually get to said combo, their life total is too low to keep all their cards. And as we all know, Verdance has to combo on her turn. So that presents a dilemma. So with that being said, you are in a bit of a pickle, if you will. So that is the current situation. Now, the question is can Verdance counter that? Is there a build of Verdance? And ultimately, the one statement that I want to say, I guess I'll save that for when we get to the hero. But ultimately, currently the Florian players have solved that matchup, but Verdance players have not gotten the chance to counter solve it. It's looking gloomy. I'm not going to lie. Like, I don't see anything direct. First thing my mind went to was Big Spell. Maybe mix in. You could counter Poison the Well. Which is kind of cringe, to be honest. But I'm just trying to really see what is in the card pool that allows you to do it. And it's not looking good. So now, what is the bad matchup? Well, you got Gravy and Acilio is like your two that are bad. And people are saying that the Syndrome matchup is bad. I asked the team a little bit before the stream, and I think most people's consensus is that it's pretty close to 50-50. There could be a Syndra edge, but it's not huge by any means. So in my opinion, I think I don't even think it's a real debate. I think Florian has to go into S-tier. Just is the way it is. It's the way it lands. Scour on Rune Chant stack. But that's the thing. It's not about the Rune Chants. Nobody cares about Rune Chants. What we care about is the life gain. Because they're running Dread Scythe, not Reaping Blade. So they just get their life total to 60 plus, and then you have to double combo while being aggressive, which is very, very difficult. It's not easy. It's not easy. So just saying. Yeah, to be a little bit more clear, they're not killing Verdance, they're just fatiguing her. Kind of what's happening. So let's go ahead and finish up Rosetta. Or not finish up, but we'll just move to the next. So we kind of talked about, I guess I mentioned Acilio just a second ago. This is kind of one of the few decks that has the potential to kind of compete on the axis of Florian. It's the deck that needs the least amount of setup to have a combo turn, which is a good combination of decks that want. And then you're not auto folding into KO. Fleshbag does hurt. Don't get me wrong. It's not good, but you usually can survive it. It's not really that big of a problem. And then I know that, a lot of Florian players might be playing the bells and stuff like that, but you have to draw those before the Acilio player goes off, which can be an ask, right? So it's a good position to be. The problem is that Acilio players, shout out to Vero on this one, Acilio players spend more time talking about interactions in the judge chat than they do actually practicing and winning games. So if they converted all that time and energy from discussing interactions to actually winning fucking flesh and blood games, then we might would have a little bit more LL points is all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So just a tip. So overall, Acilio, solid deck, right? I do think that it has some potential. The problem is it does suffer from a little bit of inconsistency, obviously, but and then you're just strictly limited on like how like who can actually play the deck really well. I feel called out, but you're right. Shots fired. Shout out to Vera for that one. So he goes straight to A. Is it the upper A? Probably not, to be honest. He might land somewhere like mid, kind of low, but he has a purpose. If you want to pick on Florian players and you maybe want to kind of roll the dice literally against Kayo and Syndra, fuck it. Just ball out. Why not? And then we can go to the last Rosetta hero. Now, I want to pause, and I kind of alluded to it when we discussed Florian, but I think this is actually a little wild. I think the entire meta hinges on this deck. I'm dead serious. The entire evolution of the meta is the responsibility of Verdance players. Okay? Because everything changes. Everything. Let's just talk about some of the cascading effects of if Verdance can gain an edge into Florian. Just that one match. We're not going to talk about any other matchup. Let's just make the assumption that they come up with some idea like burn bear and leaves, and then they sow tomorrow the leaves back, and then they everbloom the sow back, which gets another copy of leaves back, and they like play a 6 power or 6 arcane spell like 20 times in a game. Let's say that they develop that strategy that I just rambled off the top of my head, and it works. Like, we're just going to go with that assumption. Well, now that begins to push for Florian out of the meta. Okay, well, if that happens, guess what? It opens the door for KO. And if it opens the door for KO, then Warrior gets a lot better. So many things just dynamically change, right? Gravy gets worse because now he's not there to pick on Florian. Everything changes. And I know there's going to be some people in chat that are like, oh, you could say that about any deck. Well, not really, right? Because we could take the reverse, or let's say, I don't know, something happens with, what would be a good example? The inverse happens, right? If Verdance doesn't find a way to solve the Florian matchup, then she's just kind of irrelevant. Like, if you really think about, like, Gravy's not what she wants to play against. I think the Gravy players have kind of figured that one out. KO, I think she's fine into. I think she can grind that out, wait for KO to have a bad hand or two, and kind of just get value there. She dumpsters Warriors. I have no clue, being completely honest, about the Acilio and Verdance matchup. Not a clue. So, like, she really just needs to solve that matchup. And if she could do it, I'm telling you, this deck is the sauce. Okay, the absolute sauce. With the Earth pool as resilient as it is, I want to put her in S tier. I really, really do. And I always try to put 3 decks in S tier to try to like, have that triangle-esque format. And the problem is, can you solve this matchup and not lose your edge into the other matchups? And that's where we start getting into that territory. I don't know. So I'm going to put Verdance in S tier, but that is on the back of basically that they figure it out. Okay, because if they don't, then she's like mid bottom of A tier, right? But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. So if you know any Verdance players, tell them to get to fucking work because I need this to be right. Okay, so tell them Florian is free for Verdance. Okay, Nick, you already solved it. There, I ain't got nothing to worry about. Then we're good. She's chilling in S. All right, easy. I ain't got nothing to worry about. I knew they would get there. I'm just we'll see, Nick. We'll see what happens. So like I said before, I'm just gonna make the assumption that the Verdance players will find a solution. The Earth pool is too dynamic. Same for the Wizard. Just they'll figure something out. I don't know what the fuck it's gonna look like, but they'll get there. Majin will do it, or I don't know. So I'm gonna put her in S tier. Simple as that. Straightforward. Okay, so we finished up Rosetta, and we finally have hit the point to where we don't have to scroll down anymore, which is great. So let's go ahead and talk about the Hunted. Okay. So let's go ahead and hit up Syndra, the best worst deck ever, because life finds a way. That's right. So Syndra, a lot of people are going to make the argument, has a window here, right? Where you are quote unquote good into Florian. I don't think you really are. Probably closer to 50-50, but then you're favored into Gravy, right? Assuming Gravy goes somewhere in the top 2 tiers. That's a decent spot to be in. You're probably flipping in regards to KO, although I think KO is probably favored into Syndra, in my opinion. I think that she's an okay deck. I don't think she's like particularly amazing. So I oh yeah, there is the new daggers. You're right. That's a good point. Because we saw Pudding just absolutely put those to work during Hong Kong Nats. I do remember that. Okay, maybe I'll give her a little bit more credit. I was going to put her at the bottom of A, so maybe she works her way up into middle of A. Probably is where she's going to end up. Solid deck. I know a lot of people will just pick it as a comfort pick. Of course, you'll have a result here or there, especially during. I'm just curious of where, because you have 3 decks for like lower. How do I want to put this without like sounding insulting? But like, those decks that are kind of like lower effort, you're just kind of chilling and playing. I consider those kind of like KO, Florian, Syndra. Usually there's always one, but it's been a while since there's been like 3 that are like super competitive, right? So I'm interested to like see where the player base kind of shows their favoritism. Do they like just straight red line? Do they like to block more, or do they like that somewhere in the middle, which would be KO, obviously? So interested to see where that one works. Glue sniffer deck. Okay, we're not gonna. That's a little aggressive. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it's a little aggressive. Yeah, KO is definitely eats crayons deck. Oh man. just roasting the players. These are chat's words, not mine, by the way. I'm just throwing that out there. Okay, so that's where we're going to place her. I think she's an okay pick. If you really know the lines, then go for it. Then we can go into... I want to talk about these together. I want to talk about the two... I said the two arachnids, but completely ignoring the fact that there's a third somewhere, but that one's not relevant. Let's talk about these two together, because what we've seen is anytime one goes in the meta, the other one immediately gets the fuck out. Okay, like overnight. Okay, we remember when the set came out, it was all Mario. Okay, and then it was all Mario. Then the dagger list got discovered by somebody, right? And then from that point on, it became one of the most represented decks, right? And then overnight, I swear, it was just like in just a drop of a hat, right? AKA when Gravy came out, it just became Slippy. Like Slippy was the answer because you needed the ability to control. You didn't want to have to invest everything into one dagger attack, right? And so these are, to be honest, I kind of treat these as the same hero. And then how do you want to solve that problem? Obviously, both lost bonds. That's a big deal. I don't want to undershoot that, right? They both lost. Did I just lose my mic? No, we're good. I turned the volume down. That's what it was. So they go in and out. They're both the same here. It's just how do you want to kind of attack the meta? And so the question is, which one currently fits in the meta right now? And that's where we get into an interesting dynamic, because some will say that you have Gravy, right? And then so that favors Slippy, right? But then you have Florian, that is like the other half of the kind of meta shift dynamic. And in that spot, you want to be, neither are good. Get that straight. But if you had to pick one, I would pick Mario into Florian. And then KO, they're probably similar, although forcing interaction is probably, Slippy probably does a little bit better into KO, if I had to guess. That is untested. I'm just shooting from the hip on that one, to be honest. If you're nothing without the card, you shouldn't have. That's so good. That is so good. And it's so true. So the main reason why I wanted to say that is I don't know where these land. Like, there's not a straightforward answer on which one is the best. So what I'm going to say is that both will suck for the first 3 weeks. Okay? 3-4 weeks, give or take. And then once we get a better idea of what the fuck is going on, one is going to take off, right? And when I say take off, I mean like top 6 decks, like not top 3, not top 4, top 6, 7, somewhere around there, as far as representation is concerned. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't know which one it is. I am leaning more toward Mario, to be honest. But we'll see. We'll see where that lands. Slippy, I don't like the ability that KO just has the ability to like block effectively and put the pressure on. So I think Mario and his ability to make it where the opponent doesn't know when to block to get full value is more valuable than the on hits from Slippy. So I'm giving the benefit edge to Mario, but ultimately, to be honest, I'm unsure. So we're going to put them both kind of in the bottom of A tier. That is what we're going to do. And we're going to give the slight edge to Mario. And then we may have to make a change in the near future. And then you got Bonds though. We're gonna go with that. We're gonna go with that. I would put it above Prism, but I've already made the commitment to Kevin that Prism gets the top spot in B. I'm not gonna get, Sleepy lost his best card. Yeah. I think he lands in B. Kayo plays a lot of non-box, does he? Does he? He used to. Do people still build it that way? All I'm saying is just because something used to be a certain way doesn't mean it stays that way. That's all I'm saying. So going into the next step, we finished up the hunted. So now that moves us. No, we did not. We completely forgot Fang. Okay. Fang, a lot of people are high on. And honestly, for a really good reason. I think having the ability to have a good matchup into Florian is really good. You have an okay matchup, a serviceable matchup into Gravy. You can still do that. Not the whole dual wielding warrior thing, like against KO, it's probably not as good, to be honest. So overall, solid spread. And honestly, there's probably going to be a little bit less Acilio than there was before. So that was kind of one of the matchups that you kind of worried about a little bit. So I think it's an interesting spot for this deck specifically. And I would have to put. I gotta give Fang I'm gonna put Fang here, but then I'm also gonna move Cassai below Syndra. Because the more I think about the Spell Void Dagger, I'm just that's like really fucking good. It's like really good in the Florian. So I think that's a really good placement, right? You have game into a lot of the top decks. Your worst matchups, there's not a ton of them, so I think it's just a really really good spot. Which for Warrior, enjoy it while you got it is all I'm gonna say. You don't know how long it's gonna last. But really good spot for Fang. Just be careful in those flesh bags. If the easiest way that those brutes are gonna win is if they flesh bag you and you lose your fealty, right? So it's usually a really good idea to like right before you hit your critical number, you can kind of like bait out with some of your instant cards, right? It's kind of the idea. But there's definitely some play there where you have the ability to get an edge. You just got to be smart. Got to be smart. Verdance matchup got a lot worse for Fang with 6 copies of Burn Berry. Yeah, that one's not too good. We're not going to talk about that one. But you're right. It's not a good matchup. Just any wizard in general. You got all fucking reds just about. Not a good place to be. Okay, let's talk about high C's. Let's go and knock out Puffin real quick. That's an easy one. New card, great, right? Really good card. The problem is it doesn't solve the overarching issue that Puffin has, and that is it is a deck of investment with the unknown ability of payoff, right? So you make all of these cogs, right? You build up 3, 4 of them, whatever the case may be, and you do not have. You have to either arsenal your way that you're going, your dovetail or whatever you're using to extract the value from generating said cogs, or you have to rely on drawing it. And some of those are, which if you're going to arsenal it, then you're making the assumption that you're drawing the payoff and the generation in the same hand, which is a little bit of an ask. So it's really just tough. It's like really, really tough. So I'm not really liking the spot in which Puffin is in right now. I just don't think it's a good spot to be in. So I'm going to put Puffin. I got to give her probably like toward the bottom half of B. Let's do that. I kind of like that placement. I think it's a solid deck. We might actually have to adjust this because we don't have too many like dog shit here left. Might have to do that. Then we'll make another adjustment toward the end if we have to. I just like things to be a little bit even. You know what I'm saying? Be like that. So let's go ahead and hit the last one for high seas, which is good old Marlin. Now, I got somebody in my ear telling me this deck's the shit. Okay. And it does something. Okay. The deck is actually like, I've seen it. I don't think it's like busted. But it's like solid. Okay. A lot of people think that this deck sucks, and I don't think it does. Is it as good as people are making out? I don't think it is. Okay. So of course it's Taylor. Of course it is. Who else would it be? Who else is responsible for half of my bad idea? No, I'm just kidding. Oh man, it's always a journey. It's always a journey. So no, but he is kind of onto something in the fact that like it does something and it attacks the meta in a unique way, but is it enough to risk it in regards to your deck selection? And in that situation, I'm gonna give it a firm no. Okay. Once some things shift, maybe it gets like it's solid into KO. I think it's bad into Florian. They say otherwise, but I think when you have a bunch of D reacts, like nobody gives a fuck about overpower. So I gotta give it some respect. I'm torn between. I kind of want to give it top of B. That's where I'm at with it. I want to give it like a solid. Once again, Prism can't move. I've already guaranteed her spot. So I'm gonna give Marlin like top of B. Respectable harpoon build, obviously, because you really need that disruption to kind of tear hands apart and actually generate value, or else you're just a shit guardian. So that's where I'm gonna. New Fable is bottom of A, top of B. Okay, I was close, Taylor. I did top of B. So. Florian, you're going to have to stop. Respect that thought. Seems pretty bad into Earth and Warriors. Good into Syndra. No, actually, really good into KO. I can guarantee you that. If you got a lot of KO showing up, Marlin's a great deck to pick because you take that one blue card or that one, like it fucks the hand up, right? But this is where we're at. So let's go ahead and keep going, and we go straight into good old Gravy Bones. Okay, so we're gonna pause a second, and we got a lot to discuss on this one, right? Obviously, Gravy lost red and yellow Tipple. It affects the fluid motion of the deck, the enjoyability of the deck. It affects. There's a lot of situations where Tipple would just bail you out of a situation. You kind of lost that, so now you kind of have to earn it a lot more, which is pretty difficult, to be honest. But I think if there's a unique way, which I do think it exists, there's a unique way to kind of replace that gold generation. Might have to jump through a hoop or two, but I think it's there. And if you could do that, which once again, I think you can, I think you're on a close to similar power level. Obviously not a 1-to-1, right? Because Tipple's good fucking card. But you can kind of almost recreate it and get closer to it. The point of me saying that is if you think Gravy is gone, you're going to be right for a week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and then you're going to be wrong. When we actually have large events where the Gravies know how to use those extra 6 slots and assess, where things go. My prediction is that all of those players that think he's gone they're going to be very wrong. And then also, if you look here at the top of the meta, it's a really good spot to be in. Florian, we know how this matchup goes, right? Gravies are really good. I think Gravy is good into KO for the same reason that any deck that can block a little bit, wait and kind of set stuff up is really, really fucking good. And Fang is an okay match. Like I think you're in a good spot as the Gravy player because some of those Fang numbers can be a little awkward in regards to clearing allies. So you're good there. And then of course Syndra's kind of rough. But like this meta also isn't that great for Syndra, right? Because the expectation is Gravy's going to be a little less, a little less represented. So this may be a little bit of a hot take, but it's my current opinion that when things settle, under the assumption that nobody LLs, right? So if we take this meta and we snapshot it and we go a month from now and we have a calling, I think Gravy is the best deck in the format. That's where I'm going to put the deck. I think they just have the tools. They ask the right questions. We absolutely know what board state decks in Flesh and Blood have the opportunity to just do. The KO matchup, really the onus is going to be on those KO players to really like just figure that out. Now, I will say, if the KO players can figure something out, I do not think that they have. But if they can, then and that's another good point in and that's another point into in what Marcus said in chat. Like Verdance into Gravy, that used to be really good for Verdance, but man, the Gravy players just figured it out. They just like they figured that shit out. So I think Gravy's a really good pick still. What the solution is for the gold generation, I think the player base will figure it out. I think they will adapt. I think they're going to need a couple weeks to do it. Do not expect this deck to dominate week 1, week 2 of ProQuest. Once again, I have to do this tier list for a snapshot before anything major changes, like an LL or something like that, or a new set or whatever the case may be. And where I think things will land, like I said, if we do a calling in 30 days or whatever the case may be, I think there's 2 Gravies in the top 8. And I think it just does really well. I think the great players love the agency of that deck. They'll perform with it. And yeah, that's my opinion. Maybe a little bit of a hot take, but I mean, I think he's still got it. In my defense, I think he's very close to Florian. I think all of these decks are really close in the S tier. I don't think there's when I say he's best deck in format, like I have to just pick one. But I want to say that these 3 are on very, 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 very comparable levels, obviously. But like the margin between them are very, very small. So very interesting. Well, but high level events at the highest competitive level, that's what I'm banking on. Okay. Moving on. We will talk about Valda. This hero has done absolutely nothing. The problem is like Seismic, who gives a shit? I so it's interesting because you compare the two new Guardian. Well, they're all new, but like Lyeth, Pleiades, and then over here you have Valda, right? You have two choices as a Guardian player. You can either make a bunch of seismic surges to make your random attack cheaper, or you can basically have the same investment and play a pump that's going to expire 2 turns from now that gives you plenty of times to set up what you want to use it on into Arsenal and then play it. Which one sounds better to you? Stack something that has less of a time to set up that you may or may not need on the following turn, or something that you can actually control? I think it's a no-brainer. So I'm not saying Valda's bad. I'm just saying that if I'm going to mess with auras in predictability or the lack thereof, it's not going to be fucking seismic surges. Okay, it's going to be fucking juicy ass +5 pumps, right? That are instants that block. I mean, give me a fucking break. Like this, it's not even comparable between the two. So Valda, I'm gonna throw it straight into D tier, at the top of D tier, but just does not. You're looking at Valda wrong. She uses her setup for a free finisher after Zealous, Ancient plus Pommel. Yeah. And when your opponent's at 30 life and you're at 5 life, when you finally execute that, you know, it's cool and all, but then they're just going to kill you on the next turn. I think Valda's key angle is KO just giving you free surges. So, yeah, I mean, sure, okay. So you have the KO matchup, but you lose to every one of these top decks. Everyone, like, you just fold. Okay? Sure, I'll give it to you. You beat KO. You probably lose to Syndra, just on the basis of value. If you ever slip up once, you're done. She destroys Gravy? While he had golden tipples, maybe. He's not drawing as many cards as you think anymore. You know, I would reevaluate that. My opinion, but more than happy to be wrong. So let's go ahead and go to the last set, the newest set. Okay, so we got Super Slam Heroes. We got 4 in total. Since we're on the Guardian topic, let's go ahead and talk about Pleiades, right? So she's really interesting in regards to having the ability of stacking threat or damage, right? She has the ability to kind of, you know, block, prepare, and so forth. The problem is she doesn't really have the ability to do anything other than that. So if that's all you can do is pick on decks that want to mid-range you, basically. She has the ability to pick on mid-range decks because she can just play auras, pass, and make you use your whole hand offensively. And if you can't, she wins on the value exchange. But every other deck, like Syndra, you're not going to beat them. Fang, you're not going to beat them. KO, I don't think you're going to beat them. Maybe there's a world where you can pick on Florian because you can, like, you know, just giga stack auras and, you know, just take 4 big turns, right? But the other heroes that actually have the ability to convert their hand, like, what the fuck are you doing? Oh, and Gravy? I don't know, Chief. I don't see it. I really don't see it. I really don't. So I'm going to put Pleiades, unfortunately, like the top of C. Also has issues closing games out. That's another issue that I've kind of witnessed. Like, yes, you have the loop for with Cries of the Encore or whatever it's called. Um, you have the loop where you can just sit there and just loop the card, but like that's great and all. But like, at what life and cards in deck are you getting to that game state to where it matters? And why can't they just get a D react to break the loop? Like, it's not that serious. So I don't know. Pleiades can better Gravy more easily than Valda because it comes in for 15. Yeah, but like Gravies were beating Yarl after they lost Compass anyway. Like, that's how much the board state hurts. Like, literally. Glad Guardian was given 2 sets of support and the best we got was C. No, Yarl is in B. Okay. That is wild though. You still have Lyeth. Tell you what. What it's worth, Yarl can't throw 20 plus. That is true. That is true. You know what? You got a good point, Vero. We're actually going to swap those. Ethan said Leviat in C is a crime, but really I care about how much you fuck up the RKO ranking. So, Ethan, I actually started with Levi in B. She just slowly walked her way down. Okay, so I respect it, but you know, I had to make quota for even rankings. So you understand. You understand. So let's go ahead and talk about. We did one revere. And Ethan says I'm going to mess up the RKO ranking. So let's go ahead and fuck that up. Okay, so if you were to ask me about this hero exactly 1 week ago, I would have told you that this hero is dog shit. Like, absolute dog shit. It's not, okay? It does a thing. And the thing is like, it's really good, actually. When people show me something new, I like make them prove it to me. Okay, I'm like always a hater in the beginning. I'm just like, I don't believe it, and like I just make them prove it, and they did. And he does the mid-range game plan really, really, and I mean really, really well. Okay. The problem is, so basically, I think he's really good. Like, if I just had to rate him on power level, he probably goes bottom of A, top of B. Just like straight power level. Okay? The problem is that he kind of doesn't want to run into Florian. I think Florian is the big weakness, the thing that's kind of gravy too. But like everything else, he's like pretty decent into. Especially Kayo. Oh my god, you can like steal their tokens, all kind of shit. Like, oh man. But once they go, then like the sky is the limit on this hero. So like, I'm telling you, like, when they go, he could be the sauce. Okay. Unfortunately, we have to wait for that moment, and this ranking has to be in this meta. So, in a vacuum, easy A tier. Probably bottom of A tier, but solid A tier. But given the surrounding circumstance, I gotta put him at probably in the ballpark of middle to upper B tiers where I would land. And so that's where I would kind of land on RKO as the community has decided. And but like I said, expect that to jump really, really quickly with the departure of Florian. And maybe if it happens with Gravy, but Gravy's still at a 0.5 multiplier, so I doubt it. But RKO, really good at what it does. It just, it's not the time to do what it does. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about Tough Nut, which, if you want to know what the cards don't do, go watch the show match video and you'll come to the realization that Tough Nut plus me equals 4 intellect. But all in all, I was really impressed with this hero. During my initial analysis, this was the hero that was the most high on before we actually got the cards. And I'm still really high on him. I think that he does something that is very, very valuable. And I think if the player base can find a way to consistently get, so you kind of saw during the show match what my deck kind of did, and it's not perfect. It's a very early deck list, but the idea is that if you have a deck that can block really well, or with that same hand go too wide with rock, I think you can beat any deck in Flesh and Blood. Like I literally don't care, other than maybe Gravy. That's the only deck that like you probably lose. You literally could beat anything. The problem is, can you do that? It doesn't have to be every turn, but just enough, right? And then when you do that, or when you can't do that, does the scabs math put you in the red? And that's where it takes a lot of, you can do the math on scabs, right? And it's actually very positive. The problem is you have to do that math in the context of opportunity cost, gain, and lost. And that's where it gets a little bit of fuzzy on like what happens, if I hit it, I get this much, but if I, miss, I get like nothing. I'll swing a blue for 5. Like it gets a little rougher. So, by the way, you don't beat Leviah doing that. I mean, I don't know. That's pretty fucking 6 and then 7 on 3 cards. Pretty good. I'm just saying, it's pretty good. But that's kind of where I landed on the hero. I think it does a very powerful thing. There's just a ratio that has to be perfect. And that honestly begs the question of is there a perfect ratio within the current card pool? And that's the question that needs to be answered. I'm going to just come out and say, I have not answered that question yet, obviously, or I would have ripped him in S or A tier. So I think it's there. The base is there. I think that if the player base can work on it enough, could get there very quickly. But it could be a situation where I'm kind of looking at Tough Nut in the eyes of like a Viserai situation where like Viserai was really good and then he got Malefic and just like popped off, which is crazy as we're talking about a 3 intellect hero. But I'm just saying that if he gets like one more good go again source, like that's it. I'm just saying, like I think he can do it. So I'm high on Tough Nut. I think he's good. I think he does a thing. But I think ultimately what we're going to do is actually put. I'm going to go Tough Nut top of B, and I'm actually going to move Prism up to the bottom of A, just kind of even it out a little bit. So that's what I'm kind of thinking currently. And then we can talk about Lyeth, the 5 intellect hero, to kind of like close that. And then of course we'll talk with chat afterwards, just kind of discuss things, what we agree with, what we disagree with, why we do. And we can even talk about some evolutions that are going to happen or could happen. I don't want to say they're absolutely going to happen. This hero's been even more so than RKO. It's been the hardest to actually analyze and actually like figure out what the fuck is going on. And It's tricky because you have the two variants. You have the one that like wants to be a little bit defensive, activate the hero ability every single turn, and then you have the other one that's just like trying to vomit the auras and the pumps and in the low cost attacks and get the towering effect. And then you have some lists that are trying to do something in between. I think that Lyeth is just going to come down to a consistency issue. He's going to do something that's very powerful, and if he does those, he's really going to play a lot like a Runeblade, to be honest. If he does the thing that he's trying to do, then he's probably going to win the game. But if he doesn't, he can just lose random games. So I'm very curious if somebody can come up with a list that nullifies that, which maybe the defensive option is that answer. But if the defensive option is that answer, then what are you doing to decks that can just combo you, right? So if somehow you can build the defensive variant plus have aura stacking, then you have a recipe. I don't know if it's a good one, but you're at least in the right direction. The problem is you're trying to solve two problems at the same time, but they are in complete opposite direction. Good part is you have 5 cards to solve those problems. So we'll kind of see where it lands. Right now, gotta say I'm a little bit low on Lyeth currently. Not like super low. I just think that the consistency is not worth the power that you get. Historically, Runeblade, like you have consistency issues, but you get a ton of power from it. And I'm just not feeling that same level of power from Lyeth, in my opinion. Just saying. So why move to even it out? If she's B, she's B. You're right. You got me. You got me. You got me. You tell him, Nick. Hey, when he's right, right? Tough Nut doesn't have 3 intellect. He just compulsively has to pitch a random card. And I actually want to like talk about that point real quick before we place Lyeth. It's actually really good design, right? That it forces like you cannot fatigue with Tough Nut ever. It does not exist because you have to actively pitch something every single turn. Unless there's enough defensive cards that require pitch. Like if Brute gets like a staunch response or something like that, then like, okay, you could maybe do it. But it's actually a really good design to like build that in as a safety net into something that you know has like a really strong defensive prowess to it. But you like manipulate it in a way to like, oh, you're not going to just do degen fatigue because you have to pitch. Really good design. Just throwing that out there. Whoever came up with that idea, good shit. Good shit. So as far as where Lyeth is going to go, I got to probably, I'm kind of getting B tier vibes, honestly, to the lower end. Honestly, not even. Is it C? Nah. Okay. Puff and Vinny, Lyeth. Okay. We'll go with that. Not even at all, but I got called out on chat, so which was valid, 100% valid. That's where let's just kind of scan over it a little bit, make sure we're not like out to lunch on anything. Honestly, the beam might be high, and that's why I wanted to go toward the lower end. But I think somebody might cook something kind of in that middle and actually get something consistent. Just may not be great. I guess my basis was like, could it be as good as Puffin? Yeah, I think you could get there. That's kind of like, where it kind of lands. So that is just kind of scanning over it to see if, Prism's she's got to wait for KO because that's just not where you want to be. Tough Nut's got to wait for Gravy and maybe one more Go Again card. Marlin doesn't want to see Florian, but good into KO. Also bad in the gravy. Slippy doesn't like the blocks behind the fangs and the Florians. RKO's waiting on Earth to leave. Ira's not aggressive enough. Yeah, this is solid. What are the disagreements in chat? I'd love to hear it. Slippy being B tier seems high. Does it? I know he doesn't have bonds, but I guess in the context of my tier list, right? I made the statement that Gravy was the best deck in the format. And Slippy's like a decent place to be in that matchup, right? Now it's dog shit and Florian. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, right? And Verdance isn't that good either, and neither is Fang. But you have a little bit of game into Syndra and even Acilio to some point, and then even I'm not sure how the KO matchup plays up, to be honest. If that is KO favored, then you're right. It probably needs to scoot down even more. Probably to the bottom of B, maybe even down into C is a real possibility. So it really just kind of depends, if you will. So let me just kind of look. I'm currently playing Dio and Phi. What do you think will LL first? Ooh, Phi is like close, but like sucks way worse than Dio. Ooh, that is tough. Honestly, Dio. I'm being honest. I haven't seen aggro play the deck for a few days. This deck hasn't impressed me yet. It's going to take a long time to come up with a ratio. Currently, already answered that one. How are Olympia and Teklo not S tier? Obviously, we need to dedicate more expansion slots to the. Well, Olympia literally got 4 expansion slot cards. I don't think that's the issue. I think he literally doesn't have fucking hero text. I would start there. That's where I would go. If you win a PQ with Olympia, will you move him out of D tier? No. I will not move Olympia out of D tier, but I will put every other player that attended your ProQuest into D tier. That I would do if you want a ProQuest with Olympia. Super Slam producing B tier here is kind of power level I want to from a fab set. Honestly, I don't hate it. And first of all, this is like this is speculation, right? But I don't hate this. I don't mind LSS planting heroes in B and then building them up. If anything, it gives the opportunity of those decks to kind of move up and like, actually get some LL points, right? Because we have a lot of, I don't know what we call it, dead space in regards to heroes. So, but I agree with you. I don't mind it either. I think Katsu Edge is C. No. Like, what are you beating? Maybe Gravy. And I mean maybe. You're losing these two. I think you lose this one. I think you lose this one. You probably win this one. Lose this one. Who the fuck knows? Yeah, like there's nothing up here. Again, I think that Dory isn't 2 tiers below the other warriors. In a vacuum, I would agree, but this meta is just not for her. I think she just needs to sit on the sideline a little bit and she'll have her moment. But in a vacuum, I agree with your statement. But these Earth heroes are just, they got Dory toe up from the flow up. Ira won't be A until Florian and Verdance aren't S. That is 100% correct. But that's the one thing he does well, and it doesn't even beat the top decks right now. What should I buy if I'm new? Okay. Really wanted to get into the game, but kind of overwhelmed with so many options. So they just revamped the website on fabtcg.com. And they kind of gave like a good overview of all the heroes, the difficulty of level of play. So if you like more complicated decks, you can kind of start there. Depending on what your goals are, I don't know if you're like more casually focused or competitive. If you are competitively minded, I always recommend everybody's first deck to be a mid-range deck. That would be like Warriors, maybe even KO to some extent, although it's leaning a little bit more toward aggro. Flooring would be a good one, although that's about to leave, so don't do that. Same thing for KO. I would recommend like Cassai would be a solid pick. And the reason I recommend mid-range for new players is you get a good perspective of both sides of the game, attacking, blocking, instead of just doing one, not thinking about the other. Because the beauty of the mechanics of Flesh and Blood is that we don't have to play games like Yu-Gi-Oh! Where we sit and watch our opponent play the game. There's so much interaction every few seconds, unless you're playing certain people, and then in which things go a little bit slower, and then there's a lot of interaction back and forth all the time. And it's really good. And that's like the best aspect of the game. And I think playing mid-range heroes are the best way to get that experience, is my best recommendation. But ultimately, play what you like. Play what you think is cool. If you're big on like aesthetics, go for that, Playing DJ Bolton. Oh man, best of luck to you. I'm very curious at what the Rhino Armory deck will do for him. He's got a blue 6. It won't hurt. It will not hurt. I think Huntsman and Zuri are swapped locations. This is a niche argument. Okay. Interesting. I can see Ira low A because of Humble and Erase Face into the current meta. 2 for 8s were good enough in 2023. They are no longer. Yes, also play your armories. That is another great piece of advice. Slippy fits in B-tier. I thought he did. God damn, I lost my spot. Sorry, I'm getting caught up in chat. It's my fault. You guys are killing it. I'm a Katsu Cobra. Bonds, bro. It is, but I don't think it's enough. Agree, Huntsman better than Azuri. Stop feeding the cope, Ethan. Don't do it. Don't do it. Humble and Erase Face don't make Earth Heroes into good matchups. Thank you. So true. Picture how you win a PQ right now. Either you're a better deck or you knowledge gap. Yep. That's it. My experience on Slippy, the KO matchup isn't awful, but without Bonds, yeah. And man, Flesh Bag is just. Knowledge gap with Huntsman. Yeah, you know more than your opponent whether the top card of their deck is better or not. Sure. Lyth is 4-star difficulty on their side. Yeah, because you have to set up. You got to like. There's even like maybe some pitch stacking mechanics to it. It's fair. Okay, Prism back to B. Yeah, she got there a second, but I got called out. I got called out. Is there a website online I can playtest cards and learn? Yes, Talishar. Google Talishar. It is like a free client. You just copy build your deck on Fabbrary, and you can just copy and paste the link into Talishar, and you can just play with people, and there's queues and stuff like that. Those are the 2 resources I would use. Fabbrary for deck building, and then Talishar to play online games. Also, go to your armory. Marvel and Dauntless give Dory more game into Earth Heroes. Honestly, I think Earth Heroes could beat Dory paying 1 for every single D-React the whole game. I'm just spitting the truth. You could have an aura that starts in play that says D-Reacts cost 1 more just for the Florian player. And I think they still win. Dead ass. If you're talking Dawnblade Dory, I think they win. Because all they're going to do is instead of swing Raping Blade, they're just going to pitch that into the D-reaction you're not going to hit. They're going to run you out of threats, and then they're going to kill you. Like, it's that simple. Josh said, I've top 8'd a PQ with Olympia. I won an RTN with Olympia. I won one. Do you know that, Josh? It was limited, but it counts. It counts, right? It was actually the worst thing ever because I played Olympia because I had his specialization as a pack 1 pick 1. But I never resolved it. It was always just a blue. So I could have just, and I had another blue in my sideboard. I could have just played that deck as Cassai because it really wasn't anything special for Olympia. And I would have gotten a Cassai CNC. But I didn't. Live and learn. Live and learn. Super Slam being B tier is fine with me as long as Monarch 3 isn't such a huge. I mean, Monarch 2 wasn't, so I don't know what you're worried about. It's too jarring to have them release Heroes at S tier. Yeah, but it sells boxes. Wizards of the Coast has proved that, right? Well, I guess not just them. Literally every card game ever has proved that. Miss Vale was indeed a mistake. A calculated one, but one nonetheless. I think new is S tier. Yeah, she sure is. If there wasn't 2 Earth heroes in S tier, Dory would be A tier. I can entertain that conversation. That at least makes sense. Honestly, I think Tekla has good game into all S tier. Stop. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Don't do this. Don't do this. You're better than that. Okay? Most of the website doesn't look finished now and links don't work. Oh no. Okay, maybe don't look at it right now. Wait till a few more days. I suggest trying Blitz. That's also a good recommendation. Cassai plays 3, maybe 4 Marvels. Marvels? Or Fables? You overrated bits. That's wild. I know it's flawed, but it's a low barrier to entry and how I got. Yep. Cough, Kano, cough. I know. Edge Ira or traditional Ira? Traditional. Kadachi all day. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm saying in the meta currently, I think going lower is better. New players should probably stick to Armory deck heroes. Mid-range Ira is probably good. Yeah, 100%. What are the mid-range heroes? Mid-range heroes would be any dual wielding warrior. You would be a good spot to be in. Verdance would be a good mid-range hero, although not the easiest to play. Fang, Cassai, things like that. Any deck that doesn't mind blocking 2 cards and attacking with 2 cards. It's kind of my definition. DG Bolton, man, you have been wronged by someone and decided to make it the world's problem. Oh, that's good. Oh, play board state. Got it. Yeah. I don't like to admit it, but it'd be like that, you know? Honestly, give it a month until Silver Age takes off at Armories and try out it. Honestly, good recommendation. That's like I wish I had played other card games so I could like make a reference that makes sense. But I didn't. This is my first card game. Knowledge gapping at a local level is real. Sure it is. Do they actually hold blitz armories? Yeah, they've become a lot more scarce as of recently. In my area anyway. Pivoted a long time ago. I think one thing that people are going to use to call out the Gravy S-tier thing is just that he is already hard to play and how he's harder without tip. I mean, sure, but I can't gauge. Yeah, like I agree with you. It's like I can't gauge it on difficulty to play, right? Because if that was the case, then Acilio, Kano, they would always be like D tier, right? I just have to say like this hero can do this at the highest level. That's what I have to do. I say Prism A tier, but KO being good is so bad. It is so bad. Armories are the lifeblood of the game. That is so true. You start off by showing up to an armory. And I guarantee if you go to an armory and like you just ask people for cards, I guarantee we've done it 100 times. Somebody be like, I want to play this, and they'll just build you a deck for free, like out of commons and rares. Because every fab player has bulk. I'm telling you. Pleiades below Puffin is so sad. Yeah, maybe you could swap them. You could. I can't for Emma. It's above Pleiades for Emma. A friend mains Dory and he feels Verdance is unwinnable. Yeah, because it's not. It's not winnable. I think KO's best deck in format and should be top of S tier. I disagree. And the reason is that I think a lot of people are going to get that impression. And it's going to be because the other people have not had time to kind of adapt. Although I will admit that the gap here is smaller than probably any other gap. Like you could, I wouldn't hate this. Like I would be fine with that placement. The problem is that if you ever put more than 3 heroes in S tier, you get called out by the devs on Twitter. No shade, but it was hilarious. It was hilarious. You can't do it. 3 is the limit. No more than 3 S tier heroes. That's the rule. And so I gotta play by the rules right now. I'm just kidding. I'm just messing around. Other than Gravy, what's the best hero into Earth heroes? It would have to be Syndra, would be my opinion. Because you said Earth heroes, not one in particular. Good pressure for Verdance, and they lost Plume for the quick combo. So they lost the ability for that line, which helps Syndra. And then Syndra has the Spell Void Dagger, which helps against Florian. Do we count young LL points as real? I don't. But I don't play Blitz, so that's just a preference thing, I think. When are we getting board wipes and fab? Yeah, we could use some dark holes, right? Tough note. Betsy is cute, but that puts her ahead of Huntsman. Everybody's defending Huntsman for what? Like we get a blue D react and everybody loses their shit, and all rationale just leaves the room. Oh man. I think Verdance difficulty is overrated and not that hard. So I agree with that statement, although you have to be careful. I'll give you an example. There's a lot of things that'll let you literally lose the game on the spot. If you don't understand a reaction, if you play that at a certain level, somebody could say you can't take it back. Just giving you an example, I've met 100 people that thought you could get the rampant growth amp onto the life on the same card when the life has to resolve first, right? It resolves right to left. But if you were to try that at like a calling, the player could go, no, that resolves. Like we have to continue from this, and then you just lose, right? Because your combo's ruined. So there are nuances. It's like the timing windows are they're not complicated. It's not like Kano where you get a whole priority for 1,400 times. Like it's not that bad. I do agree. But there are some very particular moments that I would be nervous, just like, yeah, just hop in and do it, right? 90% of the time, nobody's going to like hold you to it. Maybe they do. I don't know. I don't want to speak for people, but I would never do that. When I went to my first armory, I was interested in Dromai, and everyone just threw dragons at me until I had a full playset minus. Yeah, exactly. I'm telling any armory will do that for you. Wait, what's the reason for Katsu being in dumpster tier? Because there was less blocking going on last season and he was shit. So now we're moving into an environment where there's more blocking, so he's more shit. That's the simple aspect. KO's the biggest winner of Super Slam. It's Outsider and Rosetta all over again, like it was with Lexi and Viscerai, respectively. You're not far off. You're not far off. A 3-cost board wipe would probably help Guardians keep up a lot more into ally decks, not gonna lie. Yes, but if you ever did that, you would invalidate the whole point of board state decks is to keep the game from devolving into a just block fatigue, just soup, right? And if you allow the thing that I'm trying to say is the extremely polarized aspect of the board state deck and the slow grindy deck has to be 95-5 at the highest level. If it's not, you play the slow grindy deck by default because there's no reason to play the other one. Or really anything else because the slow grindy deck is what beats the aggro deck, right? So that's kind of like the idea is they're kind of keeping that aspect in check. And if you allow a board wipe or something like that, like the margins are pretty thin. A board wipe, I think, would push it over the edge. As much as I would love to see it on those players' face, but it is what it is. Huntsman is legit a lot better. It's just no one besides Huntsman players have tried them. The new card steals 2 turn cycles on average. So you fatigue opponents a lot faster. It's not meta, but it's okay. Okay. I could admit that I'm wrong. So you banish. I'm not going to say you banish 9 cards. I'm going to say that you banish on average 2.5 cards. Because sometimes you'll hit a card that there's only like 2 of left in the deck or whatever the case may be. Or 1 of. You get what I'm saying. So at 2.5, you average 7.5. So yeah, you're 8, which is 2 turn cycles. Okay, so but then you don't have the armor to really lean on to survive, and and then you have life gain to just out. I don't know. I don't see it. Can we argue Syndra is S tier? All her matchups are good. She just linear, which gives perception of not explosive and strong. The more that I think about it, like, so she started kind of like in this ballpark, and then I slowly just walked her up because I just keep thinking about the fucking spell void dagger. I cannot stop thinking about that card and like how it really just helps that Florian matchup. The in regards to Syndra, the thing that I would worry about the most is I would be a little worried about that KO matchup. Flesh bag plus like just a good suite of armor, blocks good, does really good block 2, send a little bit, really good value turns. Like, I think it's a dangerous combination for Syndra specifically. And you also have a lot of disruption built into your kit. Sin packing, CNC, there's a lot of cards that kind of have a lot of on hits as well. So I think that the KO match is going to end up being KO favored. We'll see how that pans out. But I do agree with you. Good into gravy, good into basically most of the S tier heroes. Which is kind of why she's in the spot that she is. I think KO is more of a S tier quality hero, but kind of held back by being able to be exploited by defensive avenues. Verdance is super nuanced. If you miss one little thing, yep, absolutely. Syndra's barely in A tier. She's only up that high because of the S tier meta. Yeah, and that's what we're saying is like in a vacuum, she's alright. She ain't the best. But like this is just the meta to play it, right? So you got an okay deck, pretty good deck that is just it's time to shine. It's a good combination, puts it upper A. In my opinion. You need to be very careful about timing when you see, yep, in regards to Verdance, 100%. But slow grindy deck isn't 95.5 into correct. It's not 95.5 into the aggro deck. But if you had let's assume that the board wipe, which in my opinion, like a board wipe would literally put the control board state deck to like almost a 50-50. So if you're 50-50 into your worst and you are favored into the aggro deck via clash, disruption, all of these other mechanics, and just grinding them out of threats, then you literally have no bad matchup and you have an imbalance in the game. So you need those board and I've had a big discussion about the mechanic design of Flesh and Blood in regards to if you look at the heroes that started this game, Bravo, Dorinthia, Rhinar, Katsu, every single one of them has an aspect built into their kit to literally overcome people just blocking. Right? Rhinar, Intimidate, remove cards from hand, can't block with it. Bravo, Dominate, Reprise, you block with a card, I get bonus effect. Katsu, low to the ground Kadachis. Right? And I think that it was because when James White was creating the game, he came to the very quick realization that the most powerful thing you could do in regards to the mechanic of drawing a new hand every single turn was just blocking with the damn thing. And if that's the case, and that was the resolution that was decided on, you had to build in defenses to combat that, or you have just a degenerate gameplay that would resolve from that. So ever since then, that's probably, and this is all speculation, none of this has been confirmed, denied, whatever the case may be, that I think that's probably where the inception of the illusionist class probably was derived from, because you needed that to exist in the game to just prevent that from happening. Because we knew, I mean, anybody that played the game long enough would know that Rhinar's hero effect was not enough to save us from fucking Oldham, right? Just wasn't enough. So you kind of, it was like cool when everybody was playing like Razor Reflex and shit, but when the game actually crept up in power, you're like, okay, little bitty effects on cards are not enough to keep this aspect of the mechanic design in check. So now we have to bring in a class that just fucking does it, right? And we have to make sure that they're always there. And then Kano is also probably a part of that as well. Once again, all of that is speculation, but I'm just kind of like putting pieces together. And I'm like, huh, makes sense. But who knows? Is Eugene super S tier now? He is actually off the charts. Literally. Not only that, but I can't add things using this this new site. So that's why Eugene's not here right now. 3-cost board wipe. Yeah, I 100% agree with the necessity of the dichotomy. Don't want to delete it. I'm just trying to think, is this just a cursed design problem or will people complain forever? No, like I kind of alluded to, I think it is literally a necessity. I think if you took every single person that complains about board state, and myself included, okay, I'm not exempt from this. I've done my fair share about complaining about those classes. You took all those people and you put them into just a group, and then you put them into a meta that did not have that, they would, most of them would go running back to the other one. I guarantee it, because it'd just be the same shit over and over and over and over again. Everybody be playing fucking staunch responses, unmovables, all kind of bullshit, and you would have to like panic ban like all kind of shit. Like you have to like ban D reacts. Like it would be atrocious. Okay, maybe that's an exaggeration, but I'm just saying like I don't think people understand what they're asking for. We saw it with the Florian meta right before high seas. Great example, right? It was just, and people got over it quick, and that's why when they came out with the ban, like arguably you could have just hit Scepter of Pain, but they took that and Germinate, and then ultimately retraced that once the meta kind of presented a more decent situation. Unmovable staunch music to my ears, but is it if everybody's playing them? Is that music to your ears? I'm going to Battle Hardens Uma next week. I have Gravy, Florian, and KO. Okay, so you have some of the best decks. What should I play? My recommendation is, do you have the sauce for Gravy? Have you came up with an answer for your gold generation and your consistency issues? If the answer is no, you go to Florian. Okay. Have you mastered the Verdance matchup? Have you gotten that to like a 90-10, 80-20, whatever, in your favor? If the answer is yes, you play Florian. If the answer is no, go to KO. That is my recommendation. Guardian players have been in shambles ever since Starvin Odom LL. Yeah. Yeah. I do like that they're trying to redesign, or I guess that's the wrong term. They're trying to like rebuild what the image is, or give people the alternative of playing a different way within that same class. We don't really know how it's working so far. We kind of have an idea. I would say the general community, from a power perspective, is not too terribly impressed, but that could easily change, right? You just all it takes is a couple cards in that, and then as long as the concept and the fundamental is sound, you should be fine. Basically, what I'm wondering is if there is an board state solution that is costly enough to cause a fatigue game plan to take damage to play it. That isn't relevant in classes that have 2+ action points on the reg. So the problem with that is you could play that, take the damage, and then play life gain cards, which would be associated with a fatigue style deck. So I, I don't know. I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree with it. Like if it worked, I'd be fine with it. But I like whatever your solution is to make it feel better, all for it. But the net result has to be like no compromise, 75-25 at the lowest favored for the board state deck. If at the highest level of play that is not the case, you can't do it. You can't do it. All it takes is a couple cards. Tell that to the Bolton players. Tell Josh every week. Not really, but I should. To service the complaints and give something to help. Yeah, I agree. I guess to kind of compromise a little bit, I do agree that it is a real big feels bad. And I've mentioned that on several of my streams that I don't like the feeling of the extreme polarity. But I understand its necessity, and that's just a truth of the matter. But I agree with you, and I even sympathize to a certain extent because it's on my top list of complaints as well. And I don't like certain points of polarity in other aspects, but the board state one it needs to be there to protect us from something else. Since access to discard and gold generation are lower for gravy, does this mean action point challenge decks can? Well, see, that's the problem that they have to overcome because there's several options for your go again, right? Like you could go jittery bones if you wanted to go a little bit taller. You go restless bones. You go stuff like that. Obviously not that many of them, but like it's supplemental go again, a little bit of pressure, like it checks those boxes. The problem is, and what Tipple really did for the game is it lets you churn through a lot faster. It allowed you to fix a hand. Jittery bones cannot do that. And so that's kind of the power. So if they can either manipulate the ally count, maybe bring the ally count a little bit down, something like that, bring in some more aggressive tools to where you're playing just less allies because you don't have the Tipple situation to bail you out. Like that's kind of where my mind is going. And then you end up in a very similar situation where, yes, you don't have Tipples, but now you have a lot less situations where you actually need the Tipple, right, to fix your hand. That's only half the equation. Now you got to find some fucking gold, okay? So from that point on, there's a lot of situations. I mean, I've seen a ton of ideas on the gold generation. You just have to find what ultimately works, and that's very simple. Just go type in gold into Fabry and see what is playable, right? Do I think Florian will LL soon? I do. I think he will be gone by the end of ProQuest season. I started MST and Florian meta was my least favorite meta. I think a lot of people would say that. I do think. Sai seems crazy to me right now, but Warrior as a class is kind of boring. So, I mean, that's just your preference, right? I respect it. I'm a Runeblade player. I understand. Warrior's just a little too slow for me. I appreciate it every now and again. Like I borrowed one of Josh's decks for like a PQ, and it was a good like refreshment, right? Good little mid range play, but I couldn't do it for a long time. Is this tier list for Worlds or PQ, and are we including the Rhinar card? So we are not including the Rhinar card. So Rhinar only goes up, and this assumes no LLs, just the current set of heroes. So this would basically, so to answer your question, this is PQ season because we know somebody's going to LL by Worlds. So we're going to have to redo another one for Worlds once we figure out if Florian or KO leave or whatever the case may be. Assuming you're meaning the Armory deck is not legal for World. Yeah. This is me saying this is a gravy player, by the way. Thanks for the discussion on it. Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, there's two pieces. You have to solve the fluidity aspect and then the gold. And I'm not convinced that you have to solve both perfectly. I think maybe just the fluidity issue is fixed and that presents enough of a situation where you don't need as much gold, right? Like there is a world where that could exist. Default though, the unfortunate aspect is like riches. If you weren't on it, like you're on it now. That's just a sad truth. If you want to play the best version of it. Can Poison the Well counter Florian in the fatigue route? It could, and I actually mentioned that in the Verdance discussion. How I said that one matchup is going to basically decide the meta. I mentioned reverse siding the Poison the Well into Florian to keep his life down, because if you do that on a Germinate, you literally blow them up. Problem is what happens when the Florian sees that card. Do they have the ability to change their game plan, adapt, whatever the case may be? And you also have to keep in mind that they're not just sitting there dicking around, right? They're sending Cadaverous Tilling, Red Autumn's Touch, Plow Under, fucking Felling of the Crown. Like, they're throwing beefy ass attacks at you, and you don't have the ability to just kind of sit on it forever. Get 2 Guardian sets, it's still not playable. I hope I'm a little wrong on that, but that's where I'm currently at. Warrior is the only thing I play. I mean, you do you. If you enjoy it, you enjoy it. He's easily the most boring class. Oh, man. For Mario, are you talking mainly about the dagger build? I am. That is correct. I'm definitely talking dagger build after Bonds got banned. That's a fact. Oh, man. It's rough. All right. I'm going to leave chat open for another. So, Red Autumn's Touch is not like on everybody's list. I'm just saying I have seen it in some list. It has been played because it's a 3-block Earth card that swings for 7. People really underestimate how much on-demand Felling or Plume made Verdance good in discern. Yeah, it's. And the interesting part is I think it impacts the faster matchups more than the slower ones. It actually hurt Florian a lot because now you have to stack the combo to actually kill them. Whereas you could wait for a piece of it, arsenal it, and then like hope you don't get plow under it, and then go from there. Do you think Gravy is more fatigable without Tipple? Okay. Let me answer this question. And I'm gonna try to say it in a way to where I don't sound like I'm being mean. Because it's a great question. And the ability to fatigue Gravy on any axis, you are betting that the opponent doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. And I'm not saying that's a bad play. Okay? There are certain situations where maybe that's your out. Maybe you know your deck and you know like it's the best shot that you have is you're just saying, look, you're asking them to be the better player. Maybe that's the right choice. The problem is like what happens if they don't suck, right? Or they know what they're doing and they've practiced the situation and they know exactly what they need to do. I think that will always be the case for board state decks. That's where you derive the argument of you would ask Bravo players and Dromai players who was favored. And the Bravo player would be like, yeah, I'll pop everything and then just kill him. And then the Dromai players would be like, yeah, I'll pitch stack this and I'll wait till Tuesday and I'll kill him. Right? Like there was all these debates, and it basically comes down to, does the Dromai player know what the fuck they're doing? And if the answer is no, then yes, you can fatigue the shit out of them. So ultimately, that's you're just making a bet. And once again, I'm not hating on it. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just saying that you got to look at your deck. You got to say, you should never like build that as your strategy and go for it. I think that's a bad idea. But you can recognize in that moment in time, this is my deck. This is the best shot I have to win. Maybe it works. Yeah, if anybody has questions, throw them in chat. I'd love to answer them, whether it be what should I play, what should I side, whatever. Anything I can do to help, more than happy to do so for the next 15, 20 minutes. However, until the chat kind of dies off. So if you have any questions, or we can talk about the tier list. If you have any disagreements, agreements, whatever the case may be, more than happy to discuss them. If you missed it and you need to kind of like rehash the highlights, whatever the case may be. People underestimate how good on-demand failing or rampant. Yeah, it is so good. It is so good. Arcane compliance has always been bad in Verdance if she played correctly. Yeah, there is game where they can kind of counter it. Poison the Well is the way to counter Verdance 100%. Which that's not even foolproof, right? Because they could like pop in H-Pot and then you play poison, and then they can like instant speed a 1 instance of life gain, and then you lose a lot of value and stuff like that. If you're taking questions, who should I play for ProQuest? I feel very comfortable with Syndra, and my list is very different and strong in my opinion. Or KO. Only argument is all cold foil graded equipment. Well, that is a cool aspect. In my opinion, I think it depends on how good your KO list. If you're not like confident in your KO list and you're just like reloading some 2024 shit, I would go with Syndra. Being 100% honest. If you've put in a lot of work, you got your ratios right, you didn't just throw in what looked better, and you actually like worked out the list, I'd go with KO. Always base who you are going to play on if you have cold foil grade equipment. Extra 5% buff. I mean, that as well. I need you to come into VC after the stream so I can talk about a few plays. I would love to, but I'm probably going to go to sleep after I get done. Do you think there's enough banish velocity for Vincent to go full red line Jack-o'-lantern? That's a great question, and the answer is no. So, essentially, I kind of view Vinny as like a thermo problem where you have resource going in, aka rune gate, and then you have resource going out, which is the rune chance. Or sorry, I would flip those. So you have rune chant generation, which is resource going in, and then you have rune gate, which is basically utilizing that resource or expanding it. And ultimately the problem is you can increase the rune chant generation very easily. That is like one knob that is very easy to just crank up, right? You just put in more fucking cards that make rune chants really easy. The problem with the other one, to actually leverage that usage, is you now have to increase rune gate. That's one, but then you have to find action points. So it's very difficult from a ratio perspective to do that because you have to do all three of those things at the same time. So you have the base Vinny list, and you're like, all right, let's crank it up and go more rune chants, more rune gate, and more action point. That's a lot of shit you're asking for. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying it's a lot, and be careful with it. Nathan, have you still been grinding LL format? I've been playing a little bit. My opinion on Briar is slowly dwindling by the day, unfortunately. Ever since the Dirge getting unbanned, Chain is just the better Rune Blade. So that is where my kind of analysis has ended. Is like Chain is like, because I'm going to play a Rune Blade in LL. Like that's just going to happen. Whether it's the best pick or not, like fuck it, we're gonna ball. But and currently that is Chain. Is that simple? Unless I can like gain so much of an advantage by playing something else, then I'll entertain something else. But getting the chance to play an LL Runeblade, like I'll probably take that. What should we side for hamburgers? What question is that? Are you? Is that a play on calling Hamburg or Battle Hardened Hamburg? No, it's calling. It is calling. Or are you asking what side goes best with hamburgers? I need some clarification on that. What do you think is the best Guardian? None is the correct answer to that question. To be honest, I think a version of. I know I have Lyeth over Pleiades, but I think ultimately a version of Pleiades is probably the best currently. The reason I put Lyeth slightly above is I think there's a lot more room to grow with that hero. And I think the ending spot will be higher. But like if we were playing a calling tomorrow and you were saying what's the best Guardian, I'd say Pleiades. Mm-hmm. What do you think of Tough Nut / Reinar intentionally trying to fatigue your opponent? What do you mean? I mean, they're fatiguing their life to 0. I have seen like cheeky fatigue Reinar builds. I have seen that, but that hasn't been a thing since CYB, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I don't know if I'd really categorize Tough Nut and Reinar as fatigue. They kind of fatigue through damage. They like push a bunch of damage, make you block, and then kind of close it out. People seem pretty big on Overcrowd going in Super Slam. Do you think it deserves the hype? I think it's good. The reason that's being overhyped is if you were to go on the open, I'm just making an assumption. I don't actively have the Taushar open or anything, but if you were to go into the open CCQ where all the new cards are playable and you look at all the heroes and you add them up, I guarantee you 70% of them are new heroes. Okay? So if you take that knowledge, all the heroes being played are majorly the new heroes. Every fucking one of them make auras. Okay? So if you play Overcrowded, it's going to look absolutely bananas, right? Because it's always going to be blocking 3, 4, or 5, whatever the case may be. The question is that the case when we actually get into the actual meta that we should be playing? And that answer is, I think it's going to lose a lot of its value. I don't think it's going to become bad by any means, but I think everybody's reaction to it is a little higher than where it naturally should be based on that. Do you have a card in mind to patch over Gravy's issue that you can't discuss, or are you talking mostly about how deck building needs to progress? So I mentioned some options for the go again, Restless Bones, Jeter Bones, whatever the case may be. But as far as the gold generations, Riches has to come in for your gold generation. And then you have, I've seen Money Where Your Mouth Is as a pump that basically has go again, that on hit makes gold. And you might say, okay, well, that's kind of shit. And it's not the best. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but like, if you're blocking gravy, ask yourself, if you're the gravy player, is that a bad thing? Somebody giving you space to develop your board, is that a bad thing? I don't think it's a bad thing. So anytime you can resolve a card, and no matter what happens on that card, now the ultimate problem is it bad giving them a gold, because you would ultimately be wagering. That's where it gets a little bit tricky. But like, just you not getting gold, who gives a shit? So that, and then you also have, I've heard crazy ideas like fool's gold and the ability to discard it to make more gold. I think that's too much cooking. Okay. But just any way that you can generate, any way that you can generate gold. And like I said, maybe it's a ratio. You can attack it from two different angles. Is the question you need to answer that you need to make gold, or do you need to build your deck in a way to where you don't need as much gold? Both render the same result, right? Same result is less gold optimal, or less requirements to get the optimal level of gold would be the correct way to state it. So that's kind of where my mindset is you either need to figure that part out, or you need to reduce your need for gold. And what that looks like is less allies, because the gold is really there to kind of filter out those hands where you draw maybe 2 allies, whatever the case may be. And you can kind of eliminate that by just running less. I think Dio has a lot of game into gravy with Cog in the machine. I do agree. The problem is the Earth Heroes. That's where things get a little dicey. And even Kayo to an extent. Flesh bags. Ooh, it's rough. My LO deck is currently Dromai, but I'm a new player. So Runegate Chain, that's a rough one for Dromai. That is a rough one. Tomorrow then it'll be easier for me to vocalize my talking point. Coleslaw is best with burgers, of course. Coleslaw? Come on now. Coleslaw? We gotta do better than that. I'm from Alabama, and that's cap. Drama makes some new board state decks feel like a joke. That is true. I feel overcrowded, only viable in Tough Nut unless there's... That's interesting. Okay. You wager using Conquer is painful. Block for 11. And you follow up with an ally swing. Exactly. And then now you just have an ally on board. They can't clear it. Like, they're just... Not all my homies hate coleslaw. Anybody I've ever... Like, if you ever go to, like, Zaxby's or, like... Was it Raising Cane's? Like, any of those chicken finger places, I guess. Everybody always subs the coleslaw. Like, I'm telling you, everybody that I've known, nobody actually gets the coleslaw and eats it. Nobody. In relation to Vincent going red line, just pitch to creepers every turn. Okay, so now you need resources, Rune Chance, Rune Gate, and also go again. Like, it just shifts the problem. It doesn't fix it, right? So now you have to hit all the other wickets with less cards is the problem. What up, Damien? What up? I think next Dromai will say, play a red card, give the next dragon attack, go again. That way you have to weave in cards and not give everything go again. My theory is they're having a very hard time balancing, because you can't just abandon the aspect of Ash, right? Like, you have to make regular Ash in some way And then you also want to not invalidate, or you don't want to make the ash that doesn't have go again that you actually play. You don't want that to be like the main source of ash, right? That seems pretty bad. So I think they're having a hard time balancing that hero. That's kind of what I'm thinking. It's a fan favorite. It's been gone for quite some time. They literally went to Volcor in the Hunted. I mean, I think they're just, and I don't mean that as a negative way. It's a tough problem to solve. Like it's legit tough. You have to solve so many things. You gotta not make the same hero twice. You have to, you know, make sure that it's balanced. Because you take Dromai and put it in today's card pool, like that shit gets disgusting with hunted cards. Yeah, fuck that. I never get coleslaw canes. Exactly. What is holding Marlin back? Taylor. New Pummel Tech. Stop. 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 That's interesting with less ally. Does that mean Gravy kind of goes to some OP where he's blocking and throwing a, but yeah. So they're still going to be go again based, right? Because so I tried that build that you're actually referring to, and what I found was like the whole point of the deck is to have an ally on the board, and then you like force the opponent to clear it or not, and if they don't, you get an enormous amount of value for absolutely free. And if your attack doesn't have go again, they don't have to kill anything because you're not swinging with it. See what I'm saying? So like as valuable as that play may be, if you combine it with having an ally, it's kind of shit. So I think they're just going to look for different sources of go again to answer your question. That's why I said jittery bones, things like that. Kane's rookie here. What's the best sub? So the best chicken finger meal, in my opinion, is you get Raising Cane's, toast and fries, and then you get Zaxby's chicken. That's like the dream right there. But if you're at Cane's, then it would be I'd go for the toast. I think they got the best toast. That's my opinion. Plus the fries are a lot heavier to me, and I don't fuck with a lot of them. Florian never feels like he's super insane, but then I look at life and I'm losing against him. Yep, that sums up Earth in general. I actually like a little bit of coleslaw from Cane's with my chicken. Really? First person I've ever met. Like, I'm not exaggerating. Oh, man. Valda not in A tier is crazy. Is it? She a ways away from A tier. No slaw, extra toast. See, you got it right. That's exactly what I would order to a T. I just got into the Canes game recently. My go-to. No slaw, double bread. See? That's the staple. I'm telling you. That's the Codex play. I'm telling you. That's it. All right, chat. We did it. We did a whole nother tier list stream, which means in the future chats, I can at least get people not to ask for the next one for at least probably another few hours. But then after that, of course, they're going to ask for some more. Do you think the new Guardian cards actually help traditional Guardian? I unfortunately do not. I take that back. It gives them a new avenue to play on. Like you could take a Bravo deck and add auras to it. Like you can do that. And it could be better. Like there is a world where that does create a better list. The problem is you're going to need a meta that necessitates that change, and then it solves that very niche kind of situation before it's actually like determined or validated. That's, we need a chicken tender stream. I mean, now we're talking. Now we're talking. When's the so these guys. That's exactly what I'm talking about, bro. Oh man, next stream. Is this a tier list stream? Every time. But I just want to thank everybody for joining me. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate the chat. It was flying. So many questions, but I hope that I always apologize because I know I miss some. It's a lot to keep up with. I'm still not perfect at it, but I really, really do appreciate everybody being here. And I appreciate the interaction. I hope everybody gets, some value from it. And I try to put my best effort into actually placing everything and more so where it goes, but just explaining my thought process. That way, if you learn something in the coming weeks, you can adjust it yourself. You can sit there and say, okay, Nathan said that the Verdance placement was based on them solving the Florian matchup. And then maybe in a couple weeks, nobody has done that. Then you can sit there and say, okay, well, then that adjusts this and kind of walk through it yourself. And I don't have to make a tier list every single week. But you still stay up to date instead of me just saying, yeah, this is S tier because I said so, right? Like that's not what we're trying to do. So I hope everybody got value. And I just want to wish everybody an absolute blast at their ProQuest season. Me personally, ProQuest and RTN season are the absolute best times of Fab that I ever have because it's competitive, but at the same time, everybody's hanging out. The vibes are good. You're still there for some prizing, but you get to see the old friends again. That's my favorite time to play Fab is at those, I guess I call them like semi-competitive events, right? Absolutely love going to them, and I hope everybody has as good of a time as I will, because I know I will be. As far as what I'm playing, I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to whip out the card, see what I got, and then go from there. But it's going to be something in S or A tier for sure, 100%. And we'll just kind of go from there. But thanks everybody for joining me. Really do appreciate it. And I'll see you.